Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. You can find me on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. Spelling GaelenTrombley. Enjoy the show. On episode 19 of the Galen Trombley Show, I have Paul DeDominicas and Craig DeBoos back. We did a little, I don't even know, early morning, 7 a.m. With some coffee, so we had a good time. I don't even really remember what we talked about. I still have the Vegemite sitting in my throat, so don't ever take it, but listen to the podcast if you want to see me suffer. All right, hope you guys enjoy episode 19 of the Galen Trombley Show. Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Welcome to episode 19 of the Galen Trombley Show. I'm looking forward to this episode. We have two returning guests back, which just makes this an even more special episode. So I have, I don't know what episode he was on, but we have Paul DeDominicas back, and we also have Craig DeBoos. The two guests that I have that have the hardest names to pronounce, but we brought them back. We worked on that, so we're good. So as I said before on the last episode when we had Meg, you already know their backstories. Go find their earlier episodes, so we're just going to kind of get right into it. Craig's on the fact check here, so we can probably look up any of our ideas. Not really me, but more, I think, Paul, but we'll fact check him. Good thing we don't have Brightwell, who was also supposed to join us, which would have been 4 people, because half the time when he talks, I just want to fact check it to make sure how crazy it actually is and that it's safe, because we don't want him to get in trouble or hurt. So, gentlemen, welcome back.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
So this is also the first podcast where we're not in my home studio because it's getting a little busy.
We're just out and about in the world. We're going to do it in a different place.
We are doing a field trip right now, but it's good. More space. Hopefully that improves our quality of voice for you guys. So, gentlemen, what's the good word? It's also early in the morning.
Yeah, I was a little
earliest
surprised.
podcast we've done.
7 o'clock in the morning. When he said 7 o'clock in the morning, my eyebrows did go up a certain amount. But
what else are you doing at 7 o'clock on a Sunday?
To be honest, sleeping. I got 3 kids.
It's
I like to take that opportunity to just basically slug in bed for a little bit, and I have a wife who indulges me occasionally and lets me do that. So
All right, well, glad we could interrupt that.
Yeah, I'd rather have you here personally. So that's good. We mentioned yesterday we wanted to have like a dad episode where we just different stages of dads, I guess. But
I was actually thinking about that on the way here. It's like 1, 2, 3 kids, right?
Well, we all have kids.
Yes, but like you have
one,
2 kids,
yes,
3 kids. So
I suppose we've got the story. So the big crew is how old now?
15 months today or tomorrow? 25th. 15 months on the 25th.
Then you've got 2 boy and a girl, Paul.
Yes, and he is 9.5 and she is 14.5.
And then I've got 3 boys, 12, 11, and 4. So
12. Yeah. So we got a good range.
We have a
good range of experience. So
good range of experience and levels of tired.
Yeah. Well, my second is due in 2 months, so I'll be back kind of like, we'll see. We'll check in then. Maybe we won't be doing this. Actually, we'll be doing probably a 5 a.m. one at that point.
Because you won't have slept for 24 hours.
Actually, I just won't have slept. We're just going to do a marathon, to be honest. So it's going to be, it'll be fun.
No, it is one of those things. We talked about it on the last podcast. It's almost like twice the kids and 4 times the fun. It's somehow the proportionality just isn't there. There's no basic proportionality. Like the more kids you have, the number of activities goes up, and the drama goes up, and
it's
the trouble
exponential.
goes up.
It's not double. It's
yes,
so much so.
Well, also when the father is also a kid,
absolutely.
Well, so then it bumps up even more. Then we thank our wives for
hanging
in
with us,
for signing up for that.
And yet, so many of the good experiences in life usually start with "Don't tell your mother." Or something to that effect, at least.
I said that to somebody yesterday. They had kids, and I said the second one was coming, and they said, "Oh, well, I don't even know where it led, but I basically just said, well, that's a ask your mother kind of question. Not the sense that I wouldn't let them do it. I just don't want to get in trouble with my own spouse. So getting the question looked at, what, did you really say they could do that? Well, I said, well,
Maybe.
they might, they'll learn from it. If not, they'll learn. He'll make them grow.
I think it was definitely a subject of the podcast we did, and it always talked about how much life changes, not just perspective or not just time frame, but in terms of your priorities and what you're thinking about, not day to day and what you have to take care of once kids start to come into the mix. And I always look back at my days pre-kids and wonder how I was ever late for anything or never had the time for anything, and or the ability of a non-parent to say the phrase, I just don't have time for that. And now I look back at myself and wonder what the hell I was thinking.
What was I doing that whole time?
That was when I had the most time in my life.
Yeah.
It was. I see. We did this thing the other day. We were talking. I have like interns that come help out and stuff, and then I also went to a college thing the other day. And some of these college kids, when they say they don't have time, I'm like, you will not have more time in your life than you do right now in college. I don't care who you are, because you have like 5 classes, maybe a job. If you have a full-time job in college, I give it to you. But I'm like, you guys enjoy this, enjoy the freedom that you have right now, because about 5 to 10 years, it's a different perspective, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. And I guess it's all about choice. So now it's the same amount of time. We just have to choose to spend it differently.
Exactly.
Finite resource.
That's right.
But the other thing, it was interesting. Gail and I caught up for coffee yesterday, and we started talking about there is so much that goes into work and life, but you start to see those opportunities to contribute, I suppose. And your name came up a couple of times because we talked about all of the work that you've done with the city and the Downtown Revitalization Initiative and things like that. And all of a sudden, your world stops being quite so insular, and your perspective broadens a little bit. And you start to look at ways a town like this can improve or get better or something like that, in the ways that it can be contributed to. Not necessarily with politics or something like that, but certainly with the opportunities to be a part of the way somewhere like this grows, I suppose.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting because now having a almost 15-year-old, watching her sort of develop that kind of perspective on the world, and that she wants to change the world, and she's part of different things, and she's getting involved, and it's really quite interesting to see. It's neat to see that when your kids are getting active in things, and so I agree. There's a lot going on, and it's cool to see that. So yeah, you just spending your time differently. That's all. Yeah,
well, that's the one thing. Again, coming from like a new parent perspective, is kind of when you see them develop into their own person. Because then I don't know why this is like. Of course, this is new, so this is the new father club that I'm in, but I kind of have like the perspectives are starting to change a little bit. So I kind of think about like, I think of my own parents, and I think of where I was, and then I think of how I've developed, and how, that it must be kind of cool as a parent to see it full circle when your kid actually becomes an adult, and then actually now is responsible for bringing up the next wave, which still kind of freaks me out a little bit that I have that responsibility. But it's I don't know. It's kind of cool. I think about that more now that I'm in a different perspective. You guys have obviously had that for a few more years. So, did you ever hit that moment?
Oh yeah.
That realization where you're like, "What the heck's going on?"
Absolutely.
I'm now the next step up.
It starts when they let you take the kid home from the hospital the first time. You're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And then
where do I drop them off? Right.
And then from there, it's just it comes and goes, and just every time something new happens with the kids, it's just impressive to see kids grow up, and then you're like, wait, whoa, like I had some small part of that, but I always love it. The parent perspective is like the first time you actually say something that your parents said to you, and you're like, oh my God, what happened? And the grandparents are in the back, like with their fingers, like hee 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 hee. That's fun when that happens. I just sounded like my mother.
Yeah. Or it seems like a weekly event where you want to call up your parents and apologize for something that you did, as a teenager or a young kid. And I think I remember my middle son Nate, who always seems to be getting into a scrape. As in physically, he's got stitches or he's getting glued back together or something like this. And I remember the first time it happened and calling my mother and, Mom, this happened and I feel really bad. And she started laughing. I'm like, payback or karma or whatever it is coming back to bite me on the ass. Right. But inevitably you sort of look at what your kids are going through, and there's no cliff notes to this. There's no magic bullet, magic theory or anything else that works. And sometimes you're just trying to work it out, and that's all it is.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's interesting to see, what your kids sort of, kind of latch onto as well, and like what they like to do. And both of my kids have started. We started to watch the television show The Good Place. I don't know if you're aware of that show. It's a funny show.
It's absolutely outstanding. It's worth a look.
It really is. And so essentially, one of the characters is a philosopher, and he sort of couches all of his decisions, and he has a hard time making decisions. But they bring up a lot of different points in philosophy, and both of my kids have attached themselves to learning philosophy, which is awesome because I love doing that myself. So my daughter and I in particular, because she's a little bit older, she's really grasping. So we have conversations about how do you develop self? How do you know self? How do you critically think about things? And it's really cool to see, those things, like when they start to like something that you like as well. Then on the other side of that, they both, hate the music that I listen to, and they both. So, you get little pieces here, little pieces there, and you sort of grasp what you can. But those conversations, I wouldn't trade those for the world. Like, we'll go get a cup of coffee and drive around for an hour and talk about, different perspectives on how you know yourself, or what's reality, or what. It's so much fun.
I like that your kid drinks coffee.
Yeah,
that's good. I started drinking religiously at 16. Haven't stopped. So
yeah, me too. That's coffee and water. Those are my two beverages of choice. Yeah. But the 9-year-old wants coffee, and like, you're just a little. I just tell him it's going to make him short, and he doesn't want to be short. So.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I'm 5'7". Okay, makes sense now.
It's like, you can't drink coffee till you're a teenager because it'll make you short.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
No, it's interesting, isn't it, though, that parental philosophy, when it comes down to that, and one of my favorite stories about my parents was always I got introduced to alcohol. The drinking age in Australia is 18. My parents had a very European philosophy on alcohol, so I think it was like Super Bowl day kind of thing. I was about 14 or something like that, and I got almost a zero alcohol beer and thought I was the king of the world. And then started getting wine cut with water occasionally for dinner, or I was allowed to taste scotch. But it got to the point where by the time I was 18, I could no longer afford what I wanted to drink. And I remember coming home from a party. I'd busted my curfew by an hour or something like this, and I can't remember the situation, but my parents were obviously in bed waiting for me to get home, and they hear me stomp in the door, like angry and just like, "Where have you been?" And I said, "The designated driver started drinking, so I had to walk home." And they're like, "Well, how much have you had to drink?" And I'm like, "Nothing. All they had was crappy beer and shit scotch," and stomped off to bed. And now that I'm a parent, I imagine them sitting in bed, literally just throwing a high five, going,
right.
"We did it," something along those lines.
That's awesome. We ruined him. He won't drink cheap beer.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Which is college in the U.S. That's you missed. Well, no, you didn't go. You weren't here. You weren't here for college.
No, I went through a military academy in Australia. So not only was I in college, but I was actually getting paid to go to college. So the opportunity to drink non-worst ever beer was actually there. So
didn't you say Foster's is like one of the worst Australian beers?
There's a reason we export it.
Yeah,
they don't keep it. They don't drink it in Australia.
Yeah, that's the only one I know. I think.
I
know the commercial.
They got a great marketing team then, because that's all we know. We expect that's the quality of Australian beer.
Well, I think
they have like local craft beer kind of things.
Yeah, I was going to say
or breweries.
I always remember, back from my very earliest memories, there was like the beer commercials on TV, and there were the certain big breweries, and then there was like Carlton United Breweries, which is the Budweiser or the, whatever. But I always remember, as I was starting to get out into the world and drink a little bit more, that Australia had the same approach to craft beer that America has as well. I don't know where the waves hit or anything else like that. But I always remember there being these great microbrews in the city and great craft beers and all that kind of stuff. So for as long as I can remember, I've always, been on the lookout for good beers and good breweries as well. And that's one of the greatest parts about moving to this part of the world, because it seems wherever you go, there's some great microbrewery.
Yeah.
Or there's some, I think half the beers that Paul brings over every time we seem to get together for a barbecue, and you get like a shock top or a double IPA from somewhere in Vermont or something like this, and there was always some superb beer that you always seem to have on lock somewhere.
Well, that's it. Like, I don't like to drink bad beer. I don't like to drink bad whiskey. Like, if you're going to do it. If not, then I don't do it. So
I haven't gotten to the whiskey. I still haven't. It hasn't hit my
It's because you're still an early parent.
I know.
You like how this conversation went from parenting to drinking, in 2 minutes.
It's kind of natural, right? That's like a natural flow. Like wine. I love wine. I love a good wine, but I haven't hit the whiskey's not there yet. So I don't drink enough, I think, to.
Well, I was going to say there's that new place. Isn't it? There's a distillery down the road now. Like they do Wolfjaw whiskey.
There's one on the base, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple of local distilleries as well, which makes. I mean, this goes back into your hashtag local matters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
With the idea that there's all of these little sort of niche businesses popping up around the place, and they're all the whiskey and the vodka that came out of that place was really quite amazing.
The one down here?
I don't know where it is.
I thought it was right down. There's one, actually no. There's one here, and there's one. I want to. Might have it wrong. Is it the Turnpike? Is it?
I don't know.
I can't. All I know is
I think
there was a
one
tasting
going out
at
west.
one of the farmers markets that we had last summer, and I ended up buying a couple of bottles of it. But it was really good, and for local, you sort of.
Yeah, I literally drove by. I think it the other day. I can't remember what it is. It's going out west. It's going like probably Altona, Ellenburg area. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's called, but and I think there's one on the base back here.
Yeah,
like a smaller production. I don't know the name. I don't drink a lot of whiskey, so I'm sure it's good. I hope it's good. I mean, I hope they do well, but I don't know the. Yeah.
But I must admit, there's when if you think about all of the brewing places around here, there's Plattsburgh Brewing or Lake City or Ausable or Oval. There are so many good craft beers around here to drink. Why would you ever sort of stop and drink some mass-produced bottled? Whatever it was.
Well, I guess everyone's got their drink of choice.
The craft beers, like if I'm going out for dinner or having a couple drinks, usually that which is me right now, like go home. But if I'm like going out, which happens like once a year, then I don't get into that because it makes for a very short night. then you got to drink the mass produced, just quick. You can drink for quantity, not quality at that point. So
I haven't done that in a long time.
That's what I'm saying. Like I'm much more into just like 1 or 2 pints, and then you call it a night.
Well, you got to be careful.
Call it a night at 9.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, for sure. You got to be careful with some of those craft beers that have 9 and 10 and 12% alcohol. You have 1 or 2 of those, and you think you drank a lot more than you did.
Yeah, usually 1 or 2 hit you pretty good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so usually.
And then you got to get up in the morning and deal with the kids, right? So.
Right.
Well, I think that
inevitably that's the night one of them gets sick.
See, that hasn't happened yet, so we'll see. We'll see. Yeah, I think that's what usually hedges me against doing anything nowadays.
Right,
it's just like I got to wake up, or I have to deal with something tomorrow, and a clear head makes it better than a foggy head dealing with that kind of stuff.
For sure.
So, Paul, since I haven't seen you since our last podcast, what's been? I think you said that you've been just kind of juggling kid thing, right?
Yeah.
Anything new? Anything that we've learned?
Anything that we've learned? Oh man, like you just mean like life in general, or what?
Just in general. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
You always. I don't know. You always end up bringing something up.
Yeah. Well, I guess. So my wife, we talked CrossFit a lot last time. She's getting really back into training mode. Like we were kind of off that and sort of, kind of like you've said, where you get there when you can. Mm-hmm. So we've refocused. We got a goal for the fall, and that's been a lot of fun because we do a lot of, kind of mindset training and how you approach life. And I really think that mindset training, refocuses me. You kind of rethink what you're doing. I got a message from Craig the other day about books on leadership and philosophy, team building, those kinds of things. And so it's been fun because I've been looking through all my old stuff to just kind of, hey, what's good out there? And so that's been a lot of fun because I really like talking to her about, how you approach things and how you approach things in the gym versus life and how oftentimes those things are the same. So that's been a lot of fun, sort of refocusing the training and refocusing the brain, and that spills over into what I've been talking to my daughter about, and that's been a lot of fun, really focusing in on what you can control, what you can't control, understanding the difference between those two things, and really throwing yourself into something.
Are you a note taker when you read? Do you jot? Do you make notes and tabs and underlines and things?
Sometimes. Yeah. I've gotten out of the habit a bit. I used to do that a lot more when I was in school, but now it's Not so much, I guess, anymore.
Power through it. I'm always I start to kind of, not so much, every once in a while I'll jot stuff down, but usually it's kind of like an underline, because I kind of want to get all the, like, I like books, I like reading books, but like they all end up just becoming like scrap textbooks by the end of the time they're done. Meaning, like, I couldn't like resell them or give them to somebody, so you got marks all over them. But because I want it as like for me, kind of a quick reference where I can, like, knowing that I could pull out like a 200 to 300 page book and I can kind of flip through it in probably 20 minutes and gather most of the ideas that I thought were like takeaways. Right. So I don't know if that's helped or not. I haven't really gone back through many, but every once in a while I've reread some. So then I'm like, I'm just going to jot down notes, which will save the process of having to reread it over a few weeks, and
That's a good point.
I can kind of do my own little Cliff Notes version of what at least I think it's important, because a lot of the stuff gets repetitive, but like just a line here or like a paragraph there seems like it kind of brings, like I find, like for me, if you buy a book for like $15, $20, it's like if you can get one good idea out of it, it's totally worth it. So that's always my thought going in, is to grab one like long-standing book idea.
Absolutely.
If you give me a book ahead, jot down notes on it.
It instantly twigs to me, because often I'll go through and I'll sort of highlight passages or something, but that's what you're looking for, isn't it? You're looking for that. It's not just finding an idea, but it's actually taking that idea and turning it into some sort of executable habit.
That's it.
And that's the trick. So often when I'm reading a book, I'm writing down how I think I could apply this. Paul gave me the Tom Roth book. And again, sort of reading that in terms of, work or life or my team or whatever it happens to be, and trying to distill that down to a usable idea that I then understand well enough that it becomes habit in my daily life. And maybe I have to come back to it a few times, but being able to all of a sudden make that part of my personal philosophy that's automatic rather than something I have to sort of constantly go away and think about, that's the trick about, that's why I love those books, because it allows you to adjust your personal philosophy, or allows you to come up with something that you can do every day that is executable and is a habit. Because, I love to read, but, I don't know how many of those ideas over the years have truly become part of what I do.
Yeah, for sure. But I think that's an interesting point, because a lot of times when people talk about personal philosophies or things like that, you don't realize that it's practice, right? So you think practice, you think you go to the soccer field, you practice, or you go to the gym and you practice. But mindset and personal philosophy, and if you don't make it, if you're not conscious of it and think about, this is what I'm talking about, this is what this means, and come back to it until it becomes habit, it's practice. That's what makes those things stick. And if you don't practice them, they go away. And that's been. It's interesting, because I don't think a lot of people think that you practice mindset, but you really do. Like whatever that is. I'm not saying that it's got to be a particular mindset, but whatever you want that to be, however you approach things, you got to practice. You got to be conscious of it until it becomes unconscious.
Yeah, evolving thought or evolving thoughts. Part of it we talked about like that. The biggest mindset training for me was always the gym, and I've slacked off on the gym, and I found mentally on certain things start slipping a little bit. With like, kind of like, certain things are good, but it could even be like a little thing about waking up and not hitting an alarm, or it could be something about, obviously like food and that, but it could be something where like you're just working on a project and your mind might just kind of like get a little bit weak, where it's, I don't want to finish that, or I don't want to do that, or I don't want to do the extra hard step, where I'm usually from the background of just like harder, hurts, go more kind of deal. So that's one thing I've seen a direct correlation with. It's got to get better, but that's I thought was one of the best mindset trainings, even though you were going in thinking it was more of a physical training. I think it was both, but mindset overtook that, I think, in the long run when you really get deep down. And but yeah, just constant evolving thoughts. So I'm always trying to improve better than I was yesterday in some aspect of my life.
Yeah, no, agreed. There's two things that sort of stick with me, when I'm going through or when I need to do something that is difficult. So I don't know who or where this came from, but one of my favorite things is the only way out is through, right? So whatever I'm doing, like if it's miserable, like the only way to get it done is to just get through it, get it done, whatever that is. If it's enjoyable, sure, it's easy to do that. But so I like that a lot. And then there's actually a Robert Frost poem that I'm not necessarily sure that this was the intent of the poem, but I think once you put something out into the world, people have their right to interpret that. But it's the one stopping in a snowy wood. I don't know if you've ever heard of that one.
Two roads diverging in the woods?
No, not
I
that
was
one.
going to say the one that everybody knows.
Yeah, it's this one. At the end of it, so it's about this person who's riding like a little carriage through the woods, and they stop and they see this house. And at the end of the poem, he recites the lines, and I have miles to go before I sleep, and promises to keep. And my first Ragnar race ever. Ragnar is an overnight relay race with a bunch of people in a van. You run 200 miles. We did that from. Oh, look at that! Our fact check.
I forgot we actually have.
I forgot we have a fact check guy.
We got a guy.
Stopping by woods on a snowy evening by Robert Frost.
Yes. So the final couple of lines there always spoke to me because one, I was about to run through the Adirondacks for 48 hours, so there was that. But that miles to go, before I sleep is just an interesting refrain when it was mile 4 or 5, like quite literally mile 4 or 5 in a run, and I'm like, okay, crap, I still have like 6 miles to run. But then it translates after a while when you have that mantra that you put over and over in your head, like that's true. Like I got a lot still to do, and there's a lot that I want to do, and there's a lot, and so that's always stuck with me as well. Those are two things that just sort of kind of burrowed in my head and get me through when it's time.
I've always maybe we can call this like the Murph philosophy. Anytime I'm like doing something that seems long and tedious, when you look at it like in the whole scope, it's overwhelming, and then I always it always comes back to just like the next step or the next movement or the next thought or the next action. So to me, I always try to take a huge problem and just bring it right down to literally the easiest step you could do, which is just like the next small mini step. And I just knowing that like as you just kind of keep climbing up the stairs, you eventually will get there.
But it's interesting how taking those small elements of something that you found becomes almost a philosophy in and of itself. It's interesting that you talked about that poem. The one that always stuck out to me was Invictus by William Henley.
Love that.
Now, I mean, I first came into contact with that through the film, which was about the Rugby World Cup and Nelson Mandela. But it was always the last two lines: "I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul." Yeah. And it always spoke to that point again, which is somehow getting through it, somehow finding a way. And it ties in with so many other stuff. So, you just talked about distilling it down. And I mean, it's the simple concept. Like, how do you eat an elephant? Well, one bite at a time. It's,
right.
And it's always how do you distill it down to what's next? What's the next step I have to take? How do I get through the next thing? And there's something, there's always, talk about living in the moment versus living with the future or something like that. But that's what it comes down to, isn't it? It's like, what's the next thing today? And how do you make sure that when everything's a priority, you can still pick out what the best thing is, what the best next step is to make sure that everything's going to work out in the end.
Yeah, well, it takes a lifetime to do that, I think, right?
I mean,
I've got a lot of years of practice. People are always like, how did you learn to approach that? It's like 20 years of screwing up.
That's it. You learn not to make the mistakes you did.
Yeah, or there's another. I read a lot, and there's another little nugget of wisdom that someone said. Well, you live and you learn. Well, you live anyway. Like learning is a choice almost, right? Like. You can blunder through your life, make the same mistakes every day. Yeah. Hopefully you don't. Hopefully you take something away and you make a little bit different mistake the next day.
Yeah, unfortunately the lessons that tend to teach you the most are often the most painful ones, right?
Yeah.
So,
yes.
I drink a lot of black coffee. This is a side note, but I'm like, if you ever drink coffee and inside your stomach is like, there's like so much lead, acid, whatever in the coffee that my stomach seems like it has a hole in it. I'm like sitting here right now. I'm like, no, sorry. Side note. I'm still gonna drink it. It's just black coffee. All of a sudden, I'm like, I've really drank too much coffee the last 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think I finished drinking coffee last night at 10 at night. I had to go to a function last night, and then I still had coffee in my cup. It was about a half-hour ride back, so I drank it on the way home, which didn't make any sense. 'Cause I went to bed about 20 minutes later. But yeah, sorry. Side note.
But here we are.
Black coffee, we're just plugging through. Yeah,
black coffee.
Dadhood right here.
7:30 in the morning. There we go.
Black coffee, 7:30 in the morning. That is parenthood right there.
That's it. Yeah, I only put. I think we talked about this. I only put cream in my coffee if I go to Dunkin' Donuts or if I go to like a function like last night where it's a mass-produced, very weak coffee that you're just kind of like you got to add to it. But usually most coffee's black. You're a black guy, right?
Yeah,
You
I
too?
tend to drink it black.
I was gonna say I think we all do.
Yeah, I trained myself. I think I may have said that before. I trained myself to drink black coffee because I always wanted to. I always needed coffee, and you could always guarantee there was coffee, but you couldn't guarantee there was cream or sugar.
Yeah.
So I just learned to drink black
I
coffee.
was the same.
You know.
Well, I actually did it. I did it for the fact that if somebody was to go get me coffee, and if I was to say cream and sugar, it would not be like the coffee snob, but it wouldn't be proportionate to what I want. So when I can just say black coffee, it's just give me whatever comes out of the spout. we'll take two of the variables away, and I'll have a really very simplified coffee.
It was funny growing up in Australia. It was very much a cafe culture. There seemed to be cafes everywhere, and they all did relatively good coffee and sort of sandwiches and little things like that. But because it was very European influenced, it was very very much an espresso culture. So you grow up drinking those sort of short black shots of espresso rather than, these sort of gigantic venti, everything coffees that they seem to have over here. And it's not to say one or the other is better. It's just what I grew up with. So, it was always black coffee for me.
It's like the short, quick hit, punch right in the face. Is there a different bean? Because I have an espresso machine at home that I'm not very good at using. Is there a different style of bean, or is it just you just pack in? I usually just pack in ground coffee.
The grind is different. I know that. So on our grinder, we set it differently depending on what kind of coffee.
Yes.
But yeah, then Willow's she's got everything set up.
Does
right
she
now.
use the same one for an espresso machine?
Yeah, we use the same. I think we do.
The same kind of beans. I don't know if it's different or if it's just the.
I might have just made that up.
Yeah,
might be different coffee.
Hey, can you look this up? I forgot we got you. Just ask: is espresso beans? And to make espresso, can you use the same beans as making a drip coffee? Because I usually just pack it down a little more concentrated and just let the water drip right through, and then it becomes a nice little
here we
foam
go.
little.
The difference between coffee and espresso has to do with the method of preparation, starting with the beans themselves. Coffee beans designated for espresso are generally roasted for a longer time.
Different beans
Than the beans meant for drip coffee. So yes, there is in fact a difference.
I don't make enough espresso, so I got a mini. I call it my coffee bar. It's not. In the future, I will have a nice little coffee station. But I've overtaken part of my kitchen. So I want to get that. But there's this cool coffee pot. I think I told one of you guys. It boils the coffee up to like 200. Let's say boils, but it brings the coffee up to 200 degrees when you pour through it, which is better than like the drip coffee. I have a very cheap like Mr. Coffee or whatever those things are. So I think it's time to get to the big boy level and actually get a good quality. And it comes into like a big insulated thermos, so it stays hot for a while. So that might be my splurge of the year. But it's
we've got a coffee. We got everything. French press. I'm losing my voice here or something. French press, pour over, drip coffee, espresso maker. Like
I need a pour over. I think that one's you can take that.
Awesome.
I don't even know if that's open.
So yes, I love a good coffee, but the drip coffee's there in case like we wake up early to work out and doing a pour over or something takes a little bit of time when you just need like a shot of caffeine before you jump out into the lifting weights at 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever it is.
See, that was always my struggle because both of you tend to do early gym workouts, right? So you do the 5:30 class or something like that.
I plan to do early ones. It's 50-50. But yes, if I do go, it's early. Yeah.
But it was like, I don't know what it is, like whether it was because I was, working late before or I was up with the kids or something like that. But the concept of actually dragging my sorry ass out of bed at that time of the morning and then immediately hitting a workout, that is something that is mentally when I'm done, absolutely brilliant. I feel like, $1 million and the world's the greatest
run
thing.
Through the wall.
And I can run through the wall. But actually that period of getting out of bed and hitting the start of the workout at that time of the morning is the most mentally demanding thing I think I've ever had to cope with. It's a struggle.
I pack everything in the morning, so there's no prep. Like I wake up, clothes, bag, whatever I need is there. The hardest part for me is, I think I've said before, is the going to bed part. It's not the getting up part. If I can go to bed and I can get like 6.5 to 7 hours, I can get up and go. Anything less than that, I'll get my 6 or 7 hours, but it'll come at the expense of not going to the gym. So I'll sleep in an extra hour and a half. So
it was a good idea, but it didn't work out.
Yeah. So the every day in my schedule, I literally have go to sleep by 10 p.m. and that's usually the appointment of my day that I do not actually keep on time. So that usually will slide back to maybe like 11:30, and next thing you know, I go 8 days without going to the gyms, which is right now. So we'll see how tomorrow morning goes.
But you've got the gym, Paul. You've got the gym set up in your garage now, right?
We do, yeah, which makes it a little easier.
So do you still work out in the mornings, or?
Yes, we do. 'Cause there's so much going on in the evenings that if we don't, it's gone. Like the day is gone. So it's
So
easy.
even with the gym at home, you're still
Yeah.
a sort of 5:30 in the morning
Well,
person.
it makes it easier. I mean, I get up. I don't have to go anywhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
I get up, I sit on the couch for a half hour. I go out in the garage for a half hour, 40 minutes. Come back in, take a shower, off to work I go. So it works out pretty well.
What time do your kids wake up?
Let's see, 6:45.
Yeah.
6:45.
So I was always thinking that that's the best thing about the morning. You get up and get done before anybody gets up.
Yeah.
Because my household, they're looking like between 7 and 8 kind of deal. So usually I go work out, go back, come from the gym, do the whole thing, shower, eat, and then kind of see them for a little bit before I take off. So it's like,
Yeah, in the summertime that changes. Obviously, when school's not in session, they sleep a lot later. My son gets up and they're so different. My son gets up and like hits the ground running, like, and he's like ready to go. Whatever's got to happen. The teenager, not so much. So, it's like a slow process where we go from getting up out of bed to laying on the couch underneath blankets so you don't see her at all to, going back upstairs to get changed for 20 minutes so there's a process there. But my son he's quick. As soon as his feet hit the floor, he's ready.
I remember, he's what, 9?
9, yeah.
I remember at that age, I used to take a shower in about 90 seconds. It was enough to kind of jump in, wash my hair, and just like pretend I was doing it and jump out. I remember, I don't know what it was. It was so fast, my parents would be like, "Did you even shower?" I'm like, "Yeah, didn't you hear the water run?" But so I can kind of see. I think I was probably the same way. Just
Yeah.
Well, I think my kids are just starting to hit that preteen period where you've got 3 things: being on time, getting everything done in the morning in terms of showering and breakfast and everything else, and yelling.
Right.
Pick 2.
Right.
You can't have 3.
and yelling.
So you either have yelling and getting everything done, but then you're going to be late.
Yep.
No yelling is the other one, but essentially pick 2. Like you can't have all 3. You can't have no yelling, everything done and on time. It's not going to work. I'm sorry.
Right.
Get comfortable with that idea because otherwise you're just going to spend the rest of your life yelling.
And even the concept of on time, like so for me, I'm ridiculous. Like if I'm not early, I'm late. Right?
I agree.
So
yeah, you're always early.
So for me, like being on time means getting there before you're supposed to be there, whatever that means. There are different philosophies in my household when it comes to being on time and what time is at all. Like currently the teenagers, like it's a construct. We don't have to worry about it. It's like, stop learning things because, so for us, it's always, that's where our argument happens regardless because like, I'm always like, we're going to be late. And everyone else is like, we've got 20 minutes. I was like, yes, but we have travel time. So.
Well, there's always, you got to have the buffer in there too, which is I've found is I'm a very punctual person. I try to get here like every once in a while I'll be like 1 or 2 minutes late and then I feel like I like stole time from somebody because I'm so sorry I wasn't in. But I found that there's always like a buffer. So it's like, okay, we got to be there for 5. Let's, all of a sudden 4:15 turns to 4:35 turns into like we're 20 minutes out and same thing. So I think that's just naturally what's going to happen because all my friends with kids, majority of them, same thing. There's always probably a 10% delay on the time they're supposed to be there.
Yeah, it's one of those things though.
The intention's good, but
there's nothing quite as selfish as a teenager or a preteen in terms of their worldview. And certainly they can expand it. So it's not to say that they're horrible, but it's like talking to my kids in the morning and I'll be like, all right, we have to be out of the door by 7:20 so that I can drop you off at school and then get to work and be on time because I've got meetings and I've got people who are demanding my time as well. And it's sort of they're rolling out to the car at 28 past, 30 past, something like that. And I'm like, what level of annoyance do I have to reach before you're going to listen to me and tell me what I'm doing? I mean, just tell me now so I can just ramp up to that and we can get it done because eventually it's going to happen. Let's just move to that and get to it. And they're like, oh yeah, but it's 7:30. You can still get us to school on time.
How far are they from school?
Oh, I mean, it's like 10, 12 minutes. It's not far.
How far of a walk? that's what you got to start doing.
I was actually hitting that point. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be in the car. It's almost to the point where if you're not in the car, I'm not taking you to school, and then you can deal with your mum. In which case, good luck to you, sir.
Good luck to you, sir.
It was very nice knowing you.
Right.
But yeah, it's that moment. Like, but we don't have to leave the house. I mean, it's only 10 minutes to school. We don't have to leave the house. I'm only going to be at school at 7:50. I'm like, that's not the point. And you sort of have to, almost reset your patience levels to go, I've explained this to you 17 times already. How many more times are we going down this path? And
All the times.
why do you get so mad, Dad? Like, well, it's like this.
Well, I just found out. I found out basically within the year that your brain doesn't fully develop till they're 25.
Something like that, yes.
And so what I looked at, again, I'm on the very low spectrum. He's one. So I like, he's kind of sitting there and he's doing stuff, and I know he's a 1-year-old, but then I'm already in my head prepping, just saying like he just doesn't understand me, and it's just natural. And then the thing is, I know when he's going to get to like 5, it'll be the same thing, and 10, and then like 15, I'm going to be like, they still don't understand. I'll give them 10 more years, so I got to almost like step back and just realize like they just really don't comprehend, like you said, the time aspect, because they're just.
No, I don't know what point it is though, and I can't remember it being a specific time or anything else. But at some point, your parents, you realize how good of friends you are with your parents. Or I got lucky in that case, in that I'm really close, and I quite enjoy hanging out with my parents these days. And I was the typical teenager like anybody. I mean, I couldn't get away fast enough from the family. Wanted to go do my own thing, and I'd get on my bike and go or something like that. But at some point, my mum and my dad became two of my best friends. And it's always those sort of long-winding conversations over drinks or food or something like that, and hearing about their life philosophy or something like that. But at some point, that became fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And I don't know what point that was. I mean, I'd have to say it was somewhere in the crossover between teenagehood and adulthood.
When you could start affording the good whiskey again?
Potentially. That's exactly right.
Mom and Dad can come back home now.
I think half the time I was going home just to enjoy that good whiskey, to be honest. But
right, well, it's what brought you back.
But it's also interesting when you can start having those philosophical conversations with your parents. And like you say, when it's funny watching your kids when they start being interested in what you're interested in. And it's a really weird crossover point where you start talking to them as if you were talking to one of your friends or one of your peers or something like that. And them talking back at you in the same sort of mode. It's one of those nice things that happens when your kids start to grow, get a little perspective.
Yeah, it's interesting. All the different parts, like when they're 1 and you can barely just kind of keep them where they are and not jumping.
It's like
off
trying to nail down a wave,
right? Not trying to jump off of something or whatever. My favorite, I knew we were in trouble with the first child. My favorite story. She was like 3 or 4, and we were driving downtown. I was, it was a frustrating day, and I just couldn't sort of reframe what was going on, and so I yelled. Right, I turned around. She was in the car seat, and I yelled, and so everything got quiet in the car for a second, and then she looked at me and she said, "You will never talk that way to me again." And she was like 4. And I was like, okay, here we go. But yes, it eventually they all come around in all the different stages. And, like when she was 3, she was going to be an only child. We were like, I don't know how we're going to do this again. But even that, they're so different. Like, it's an interesting thing. 3 kids, 2 kids, they grow up in the same household, but it's not the same household, right? So 2 kids with the same parents in the same house can be so totally different. It's an amazing thing to see, because kids are very, like my kids, they're 5 years apart, just about, and they're so different. It's pretty neat to see,
With my, you guys both know Isaac, right? So his son, the other day they sent this group thing out. So Ethan's probably like 8 maybe, and he's sitting there and he's doing, he's imitating Isaac. So he's sitting there and he goes, "This is what happens when Isaac gets mad at Scarlett," which is his wife's daughter. So he's like, "Scarlett, you can't do that anymore," or whatever the case was. And all of a sudden Ethan goes, 10 seconds later, "Scarlett, get in your room now." And he's doing it identical. And he goes, "You do it again. I'm taking that away," or something like that. And he goes, 20 seconds later, or 20 minutes later, "I'm sorry, Scarlett. I'm not going to take anything. Here you go. You can have it back. I'm sorry. I was out of line." And he's doing this whole thing. He's 8 years old, and we're bursting out laughing. We're watching this thing. I probably have watched it 20 times. And literally the whole time I'm sitting there in my head, I'm like, oh, my God, this sounds just – it's literally Isaac as an 8-year-old with the same voice and mannerisms, and he's spot on. But it's so funny. He's, like, imitating And of course Isaac's taping it, and he's just dying laughing. He's just like trying not to laugh over what he's actually been said. But I can't wait till you get to that point where the kids actually, they know you so well that they can kind of just like get under your skin. Not really get under your skin, but they can. Yeah, he's like making fun of the old man at that point.
Yeah.
And of course Isaac's a kid himself, so he's just dying laughing. It's hilarious.
I love it when they come back with the things that you say. Like, just expressions that you use. They pay attention way more than you give credit for. Like,
absolutely.
Right? So, it's funny that they can do that at such...
I've noticed with the little guy, because we'll sit in there, and when he gets done eating, of course he's a good eater, he gets done eating, he starts throwing food down for a dog. Or he'll he's very big into these shaker bottles right now. He loves them. So for some reason, that's his favorite thing. So he's sitting there, and he'll just turn and throw something down. I'm like, Crew, you can't do that. He looks at me and goes...
Throws it again.
And of course, I'm in my head. I'm like trying not to laugh because I'm like, that's actually pretty funny. But I'm like, buddy, you gotta be on the same team as me right now. You can't do this. But
no, I think a friend of mine posted that meme on Facebook the other week, which was something along the lines of you haven't seen parenthood until you flipped off your kid behind their back, or something like this.
I know. We used to when our son was 4 or 5, same thing. It's that 3 to 5 age that's really an interesting one. We'd go out to eat, and when he was done eating, he would take his food and throw it over his shoulder. The first time he did that, we didn't think to put his back to so anytime we would go to a restaurant after we realized, we'd be like, I'm sorry, we have to, but he needs to sit with his back to the wall and we'll clean up the mess. Same thing, though. He'd look at you and just be like, boop, and just give you the look and like, yeah, I'm going to throw this because I'm not hungry anymore.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's coming for sure.
Maybe he was younger than that. Maybe he was 2, but he was, it's funny.
No, it's
funny looking back. It's not funny at the time.
Or it's hey, Galen, looking forward, this is what to expect.
It's all the weird things like you don't realize what you say. So I can't remember where the story comes from, but kid shopping cart blocked lane at the supermarket, and the kid turns around and goes, "Pick a lane, you moron!"
To another person?
To another.
Oh, that's great. That's gravy right there.
And at that point, you realize, maybe there's some road rage happening that the kid's viewing, and oh God, how many people do they actually look at in a car? And oh God, it's me. Unfortunately, that one wasn't me, but there's been a few times where, when your kid pulls you up short and says, and they go down the but why path, and you're like, I genuinely don't have the explanation. And that's the point where your parents come out of your mouth along with something like, because I just told you that.
Right.
Or
because I'm your father.
Because I'm your father.
Listen, kid, I don't have a fact checker with me right now. Yeah. I don't know why that is.
Right. Take my word for it.
How come? Why?
But it's one of those extraordinary revelations of young adulthood is one, realizing that your parents don't know everything.
Right.
Or realizing, or the other realization is thinking that they don't know everything, and then suddenly realizing they know a lot more than you might think.
Yeah.
And there's those stages that you go through, and it's interesting watching your kids go through those same stages. It's just a never-ending fascination, isn't it?
Yeah.
And as annoying and frustrating and sometimes completely mind-blowing experience as parenthood is. Sometimes you look back on those moments, and it's almost like having a revelation in and of itself. Watching your kids go through some of these things. And I think the hardest thing, forever the hardest thing about parenthood is always letting your kids make their own mistakes.
Yes.
And trying to find a balance between protecting them enough that they're not going to get themselves killed, but at the same time, letting them learn those painful lessons and picking them up afterwards and dusting them off and everything else like that. And especially when you can see it coming from a mile off and you know what's going to happen and you know it's going to end badly. And you're like, all right, well, I'll be here when everything goes to hell. You just come and see me and
yep. Yeah.
Go from there.
It is. It's peculiar. Parenthood is peculiar. Yeah. Although life in general is peculiar, so I suppose at the end of the day.
True. But again, it's that thing that wends itself through so much of the conversations that we seem to have. And it always talks about, I wish I'd known this 10 years ago. But if I'd known this 10 years ago, I wouldn't be in the position that I am now.
Right. I 100%. I am who I am because of every choice I've made up until this point, and all the people that I've known, and all the things that I've done, and I'm pretty comfortable with who I am right now. So rock and roll.
I heard this the other day. Someone was talking. They go, when everybody always says, "Would you change things differently?" And they're like, "Well, there's things that I wish I kind of hadn't done, but I'm glad I did it because now I'm here and my life's awesome." Kind of deal. Where it's like, you point to stuff and I'm like, I I wish you didn't hang with that person or meet that person or do that thing or say that thing or whatever. But at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in like things are kind of, they just work out for the right reason. Like there's a reason you did something stupid. There's a reason you met somebody. There's a reason you said something. Like even not good things. I'm always like, I no, maybe this is just the optimist in me. I'm just like, that wasn't good, but hopefully I either learn from it or maybe he's not as bad as I think, and I become a better. My life gets better, even though it was a dumb thing or something bad.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know, but it was a good perspective, and they just said, well, things I would have liked to change, but if I would have changed them, they would have ended differently, or things might be different today.
Yeah, you'd be a different person. It's like the what is that? The butterfly effect, right? The butterfly flaps its wings over here, and there's a tornado over there. Same kind of thing. Like all the things, if you would have changed that piece of your life, you might not be doing what you're doing now. I mean,
well, it's even like moving, like or. I mean, I've met some really good friends because they happened to move here, or I happened to visit them there and ran into them, and then like I always look like one little like turn this way or that way, you never would have met that person or done that thing. 'Cause I mean, I look at, well, I don't know as much about you, but you had said the same thing. Like you met your wife in New York City. Mm-hmm. Like if he didn't go to New York City, he's not. You know what I mean? Like there's so many like random encounters that are. It's kind of weird to look back on, but I think it's cool. Right?
I'm agreed. It's one of those strange things that.
Like what made you go to New York City? Because you were in the military.
I was in the military. I had a period of leave, and my parents were living in Italy. And at the time, it was almost like they said, "You can come to Italy and hang with us, but we're not actually going to be there. We're like in the middle of a bunch of stuff with work." And I knew that was going on, so I said I was getting together with a friend, and we had this big trip down the east coast of the U.S. planned. So we're going to start in New York and fly out of Miami, like 6 weeks later. And then in the lead up to the trip, he broke his leg and couldn't make it. And through friends of a friend's, I'd been, off and on texting with Karen for a long time.
This was prior.
So this was well prior to that trip.
Where did you meet her?
Well, I actually met her in New York City. It was literally, I was going to be in New York City, and I'm like, who do I know there? Because all of a sudden I'm going to be on my own in New York City and traveling through the US. I'm going to catch up with a few people. And so I called up Karen and said, hey, look, why don't we just grab a coffee or something like that? And I don't know anybody in New York. You can tell me a little bit about where to go and what to do and what's cool. And she said, where are you staying? And it was going to be this hotel downtown. She's like, that'll be ridiculous. Just come and crash on my couch. And I'm like, great. So I met her literally the first day I landed. And after that, never made it past New York City.
and never made it past the couch.
No, literally.
But how did you know her prior to New York City?
I'd been introduced to her via email from a friend of mine. Like me and a friend were having this argument, oddly enough, over a philosophical discussion over books or something like this. And this friend of mine went, don't worry, I know someone who can settle this argument. And so we get together and I'm chatting with Karen, and I kid you not, she called me a jerk the first, 3 times in the first hour we ever spoke.
Yeah, I totally did that too. I called him a jerk at least a couple times. No, I'm just kidding. Continue.
So,
that's probably not off air.
That's probably not. That's actually not far from the truth. But we sort of had this, we'd sort of email each other and text each other, and it was just one of these conversations that had, it was this conversation that had stretched out over, it was probably a year before I actually met her. And it wasn't like I ever went there with any expectations. It was just, hey, I'm going to New York. Hey, it'd be great to finally meet in person. And something clicked. So we did the long distance thing. And every time I was taking leave, and I had a lot of leave because of deployments at that point. So I was taking these periods of sort of 3 to 4 weeks in New York every few months. And that's how everything started. And we were on the phone all the time. It was at the internet stage where you could do internet phone calls, so you could keep the cost down that way. And long distance sucks, especially when it's halfway across the world.
Right.
And so we ended up getting married in 2003, and she moved back to Australia. Sort of taking life on an absolute wing and a prayer.
Is she American?
She is American. So she was born in the Philippines, moved to the States when she was 4, and had lived all over. Her father is a doctor and works at CVPH. Mm-hmm. But she'd been working down in New York City at that point. It was literally just that was the city I happened to be in, and it was one of those quirks of fate that sort of put us in the right location and the right time. And like you say, all of those weird decisions. I mean, had my parents been a little less busy that particular set of 6 weeks, I would have been in Italy and not in the US and never would have met Karen. So it's quite strange how these things work out.
Yeah, yeah, and I guess that's it. I differ a little bit. You were saying sort of that things happen for a reason, and I almost think I think generally think the opposite. Like life is pretty random, and you pick the threads that make sense, and you make the choices that you make sense to you at the time, and things can work out for sure. But I don't know that I think that there's anything that, like, I'm not on a path, because there's so many of those weird things that can happen. Like your car breaks down and you meet somebody that you didn't think you'd meet if your car didn't break down. You know what I mean? Like, it's
Absolutely.
those kind of things. And actually, for the record, Craig, when I met him the first time, nicest guy in the world. I went to the gym for the first time, terrified of going to the gym. Never have gone to a gym in my life at that point. First guy comes up to me and he's like, listen, it's not that scary. Like, come on, we're going to go do this. And so he's certainly not a jerk the first time I met him. Maybe back in the day he was a jerk, but that first time he was.
The back end of this story is I was feeling pretty good at this point. I was thinking, I'd been into CrossFit for a little while or something like that. And Paul had come. He was like, I'm a runner's background. I can't do any of this. I think it was a chipper workout, because I just remember.
I just remember being terrified. So
No, I just remember at the end of this workout, like literally lying on the ground in a pool of my own sweat and looking like there's Paul on his back 4 feet away from me. And he sort of looked at me and he's like, is it always like this? Let's do this again. I'm like, just thinking, like, how do you get through a workout like that in the condition that I was, where I was like on the verge of passing out at this point. And this guy's like, that was cool. Let's do this again. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, well, we're all a little off.
Yeah.
Right?
That's why I wish our most off is Scott, but he's not here.
So it's funny though, because speaking of, so there's a group of us that we do silly things like run races for 48 hours and things like that. And so the idea is, it's like, it's only, that's sort of the concept, right?
It's what?
It's only 12 miles. It's only 40 miles. It's only, and if you frame it like that, where, hey, it's only going to be this, you just sort of end up doing like weird stuff like one day. You're like, you show up at a CrossFit gym, or you end up in a van for 24 hours. And you're like,
usually just pull them out of their house. They just get in the van. We're going. Like, where are we going?
Yeah. Like one year it was, we were like, well, we're gonna, whatever crazy thing it is, and it always starts with, it's only 24 hours. It's only, and I think that's both a good and a bad life.
I think
philosophy.
that's a lot of how bad decisions in college happen. Well, it's only
Hold my beer. No.
Right. Yeah. That's the grown-up version of hold my beer, right?
You won't.
It's fascinating that it is the grown-up version of hold my beer, because it's one of those things where somebody sort of says, oh, well, hey, this would be a great idea. And then you actually have to commit to it.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, my God, what have I just done?
What have I done?
We used to say back in high school, college, you would say something and be like, you won't do it. And all of a sudden it's like, hold my beer. Like, it's just one of those where it's like we don't actually want you or intend you to do it, but we're gonna test you right now. And then you
see.
Usually at that age, like we said, the brain's not fully developed, so you're like, all right, let's do this.
But how many, it's one of those things, again, about getting older, where you start to realize that, it looks interesting, it looks fun. Of course I'm going to do it. Why worry about what other people are thinking or what other people might tell me or something like that? It's a new experience and I want to try it. So we're going to go do it. And that extends to a lot of things. Admittedly, some of the more, shall we say, physical things that Scott and Paul tend to do, and I sort of look at it and go, I don't think I would ever have the mental fortitude to get through something like that. I mean, they talk about Ragnar races or these ultra races, and I wonder how the hell anybody gets through those. But it's just another opportunity, isn't it, to explore something different?
Yeah, well, I find that idea really fascinating. Reading about limits and endurance athletes, and there are those people who run 120 miles through the desert. Like, it's all a matter of degree, I suppose, at that point. But there's just, how do people push themselves? Where's that? I don't know what it is. I mean, they're people study this for a living, and they're like, why can people push themselves for 120 miles through the desert? How do they do that? What do they do? What makes it about them that can do that and somebody else can't? So those kinds of things are just very interesting, like why people do what they do and how they push through, and that training of.
No, I think you made me think that what you said before about doing stuff physically now that you probably just think you still can do, or aren't as intimidated as you used to be. So like the other day we went skiing, I love skiing. I'm not a big skier. I don't go often. So we went up to Whiteface, and I've always been terrified of going to Whiteface. I've always been a Titus guy. Like, I'm going to crush Titus. I'm good. And everybody's like, no, I think you can do Whiteface. Well, the first run I did an easy one. The second one I did a medium. By the third run, I was doing a black diamond. Now, like, to me, that was like a fear of getting over, like, of doing well. And then we ended up going all the way up to the summit on the one that I was told never to go on, which is the one way up high, which come to find out was the two guys that I was with, Adam Crosley and Buck Bobbin. I think you might know both of them. At least one or two of them. Yep. So they both have skiing backgrounds. I don't. So we get off the top. So I'm looking up, and they got the sign up there. It says basically this is the start of the Olympic race. I'm like, oh God. So as we get up there, and it starts getting icy. Again, it's my first time ever at Whiteface. We go up, and they go off this left ledge, and the next guy goes off the left ledge. So then I'm sitting up there all by myself, and my thought process was, literally my first thought was, well, I just don't want to make them wait. So I, of course, go up, and I go, like, I didn't even think about it. I really just kind of looked down, and then I had the oh shit moment, and then I just was like, well, whatever. And I went down and kind of jumped into it, did a couple passes, spun out, lost a ski, not a big deal, got back up. Well, then another 20 feet, and I hadn't fallen all day. I was crushing it. All of a sudden I get down, do a couple more turns. Well, it had gotten icy up there. The visibility wasn't very good. It got windy. My skill level was not at that level. I did the full tumble down this thing, and we're talking the slope on this, or the grade on this slope was substantial, where you couldn't really just slow down. You basically fell until enough snow piled up on you that it would hold you.
It's like old school cartoons.
Yeah, that was me at one point, and I thank God I had a helmet on. I would have definitely had a concussion, and all of a sudden I get down. And Adam's down talking to a couple people because he had waited for me. Bucket actually was kind of behind me at this point because he realized I should probably be behind this kid. So I make it down to the thing, and Adam goes, how was it? Kind of being sarcastic, and I said, well, I tumbled. He goes, yeah, I know. I saw all basically the powder of snow come down. He couldn't actually see me fall. But then at that point down, I made it back down the mountain. It was another like 10, 15 minutes. But I made it back down with no issue. But that was my mental thing of it's gotten better. I would have done that, but I just was kind of like, I had no reason to go down that. I was not good at all, but I was just like, well, it's only that steep kind of deal. So I ended up just kind of, I wouldn't say bomb down it, but I didn't cut enough as I should. I wasn't carving the snow like I otherwise probably should have. So basically I took a little tumble, so it was all fine. Then I get back, and I'm like, I'm good. Well, the adrenaline kind of kicked off, and then I get back to the car. My left hip is, like, kind of hurting for 2 days. The other day, I walk into the office. I had a late podcast, and I go walking in, and Meg was sitting there, and I'm like, my arch of my foot hurts. She goes, what'd you do? I said, I don't know. Like, I've gotten to the point now where I'm like, I don't know why I'm hurting, but which I talked to somebody yesterday, and they go, yeah, you're good till about probably late 30s, early 40s. Then you have no clue why you hurt. You just hurt.
It's truth.
I mean, that's when you find out that you can throw your back out by just sneezing really hard.
Right.
Well, I get out of bed most days as kind of like a barrel roll out because it's the least painful way to get out of bed, and my back's like, it takes my back a while to get unstiff throughout the day, which I know is probably not a good thing at my age. But 10 years ago, I was like Gumby. Now I need a little more maintenance on me.
I think Scott and I were talking about this a while back, and it's just not CrossFit in your 40s until you have to kip out of bed the next day.
Right on. I love it, man. I love it because it's all stages, right? Like, so I just turned 42.
Yep.
And
what'd you 41.
Yeah. So you start to. I do crazy things and can generally get out of them pretty decently. But the other day at work, like, I moved a desk and my back hurt for like 3 days. I was like this is stupid.
I've had almost all my injuries being like moving stuff or doing something. The worst one, it happens a couple times a year. I'm like emptying the dishwasher or putting dishes away. Well, if you have 2 or 3 stacked up and you go to put it on the shelf, you reach up. I've tweaked my wrists more times than I care to imagine.
Extreme sports.
Yes.
Dishes.
Where all of a sudden I'm like dish, and like it gets to the point where like my whatever muscle this is or tendon will hurt for 2-3 weeks. All of a sudden I'm like just like doing this for days on end because I put a dish away wrong and a little extra weight on the hinge of the wrist. And
that's so funny. Oh my
but that's one of my most reoccurring injuries when I put dishes, and it's not like happened once and I'm like, oh, that happened one time. It's like, no, it happens over and over again, multiple times a year. Which is the point where like I can't like overhead squat. No way. Like I'm done for.
I did dishes today, man. I can't do that.
That's it.
I was talking to my dad.
I'm scaling this one. We're gonna go to the clean today, but
you've got to understand my dad. Like, I think for his 70th birthday, he went skydiving, and the 71st was bungee jumping. I mean, he's literally that kind of guy. He just gets out and does life. And he said, "You're always 20 in your mind. Like, get used to the idea. You will always be 20 in your mind when it comes to music and going out, all the things that you wish you could do. But at some point, you have to make the realization that your body can no longer cash those checks."
Right.
And I think I talked about this a little while ago. It was I got invited to play a Masters rugby tournament, and went, yeah, why not? It's only a day rugby tournament, right? It's only right.
It's so much trouble.
I got nothing going on tomorrow. Yeah, we can make it happen.
And you know, I sort of said, oh, you know, it's one of these shortened versions of the tournament. You know, I'm feeling pretty fit. You know, it'll be fine. And then went out and played the game as if I was 25 again. And I just remember waking up in the morning going, oh, God, I genuinely don't think I can move at this point. And it was like, you know, it wasn't, I don't think I'd ever been in that much pain in my life, because it wasn't pain from the day, I wasn't in pain the day before. I got the normal bumps and bruises, but just lying there to the point where everything hurt, like my back and my neck and every muscle in my body just ached. And I'm like, I can't do that anymore.
I played a lot of soccer growing up, and then I coached soccer for many years. So I was like, but I wasn't like playing. Like I was coaching, you'd be kick the ball around, but I wasn't actually in a game. So I played not men's league, or whatever it was, co-ed, like indoor soccer. I think it was last year. It had been almost 10 years out of playing any type of physical, actual soccer game. And some of these kids have kind of kept with it, and a lot of them were younger at the time. So I was definitely one of the older ones on the field, to the point where I had to like kind of find my gear again. So I go play, the same thing. I get home. I can already feel this midway through the game. Of course, I take my socks off. I'm bleeding in probably 3 spots. I got like basically blisters that have broken open. I'm sitting there. I wake up the next day. My knees are throbbing because they're just like in pain from just like the moving like this side to side. And of course, Gina, she's like, "You're really gonna go play?" I'm like, "Yeah." And, like, of course, Gina is the person you cannot complain to because she has zero sympathy for me. So if I'm like, oh, I'm sore, and she literally will just be like, "Shut up!" Like I'm not. I have zero. I have zero sympathy at my house ever. So I try not to. My complaining factor is very limited because Gina does not care. So, but yeah. So the soccer, I think I'm officially done.
Officially out.
Maybe like an old alumni game, I might go back. For only 10 minutes, maybe.
Right. Put me in at the end.
Like I can play, right? Like how long's the game? Okay. Well, it's only we've already cut the game in half, so okay. Well,
sorry,
we're just playing one half.
I remember hearing. I'm sorry. The threads you pick up on. I remember hearing Paul's "It's Only Philosophy" probably 2-3 years ago now. It's so true. I'm sorry, but every time you start thinking about it, it just reverberates in your mind. Hey, it's only.
That's it. I actually have it tattooed right here on my arm. Yeah. In Italian, it says "It's only." Right.
If you actually had to poll, like if you were to say who do you think would have come up with that quote, I probably would have looked at you or Scott. And been like, "It's only." That sounds like something they would say. Yeah. Usually followed by something where you kind of curse them out for saying it was only this because it's not only that. It's
many times we've been like, oh my God. So myself and Scott and our other friend Scott, it's the
I should have got him on today.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
That would have been a whole different conversation, brother.
Shout out Scott Coda.
But we have the rule of 2, right? If 2 say, third's in, doesn't matter. So
that's dangerous.
I am never hanging out with you guys ever again.
Dangerous crew to say that to.
Yeah. So speaking of it's only, it's like, man, well, it's only this, and it's like, all right, well, 2 said yes. I was like, shit. We ran up Whiteface Mountain. They have a run up White. It's 8 miles from the base to the top. You run up the road.
Yep.
Oh my God! Like I've done some things that are crazy in my day. That was the worst thing because I don't know if you're aware of this, but it is a mountain. And it's just the incline. It never flattens ever, like never. And then so you run up Whiteface Mountain, 8 miles up. You get to the top. Everything is glorious, of course. And then it strikes you on the way down when you're in the little bus that takes you down, and you can smell the brakes because they're right because it's so steep. And you're, what the hell did we do? But that was one of those things. Like, hey, you want to run up Whiteface? And it was like, Sure, it's only 8 miles.
It's only a high peak.
It's only 8 miles. Well, it was paved, for God's sakes. I mean, we weren't running up a trail. It was fine.
You'd probably been better off on the trail.
Yeah, probably.
You would have got at least a rock to step on and kind of level out.
It was one of those, again, it was one of those like, yeah, sounds like a good idea. And then I'm at the base of Whiteface at like 7 o'clock in the morning going, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I look at my two friends, and they're like, right.
You're the third guy on that one, right? Like
I might have been. I don't know.
Yeah.
I won't say for certain, but there are definitely some strange things that occur. But I never did this kind of stuff when I was younger. Not until I was much older did I get into like fitness and things. And when I first started running, I would run for 30 minutes and like have to go home and sleep for 5 hours. And now, like we'll do.
That's
like,
me after a 7-minute AMRAP now.
Yeah,
like, I'm good. I'm good.
So there was this workout. It's the Viking workout. We actually did it over. We did it over at your gym.
Well, I don't know what it was, but I saw you doing it.
Yeah. It first of all, it's hilarious when you have to like seriously contemplate like we're running through a residential neighborhood with sledgehammers and weight vests. You know what I mean? You're like, so you row 3,000 or 4,000 meters. You do hammer strikes on a tire. You run a mile and a half. You do 200 hammer strikes on a tire. You come back. You row for. It was like an hour and a half workout or whatever. Before that would have killed me, but at this point it was like, okay, one, that was a lot of fun, and then two, I think we installed hardwood floors later on that day. So now like the fitness level and the things you can do is like, you put in a 2-hour workout, then you go home and you do floors, and it's like and
you're okay with that.
Everything for time, right? How fast can you put the floors in? How good do they look?
Well, I've gotten to that. Like the for time thing is on a lot of. I do that a lot in a lot of things. That's translated over to work and certain things that I, even chores, household chores.
Yeah.
Like snowstorm. Like how quickly can I snow blow this thing? And of course, 2 hours later, my beard was frozen, and I was like, it wasn't very fast, but we got it done.
No, that was one of those fitness epics. My first year of
it's only 14 inches, right? It's like get through and get this.
My first year of North American home ownership, and realizing all of what that entailed, and somebody said, "Are you buying a snowplow?" And I'm like, "Do I need one? Is it not just a shovel?" And this guy gave me this wry look that said, "Be my guest."
Right.
And so the first time I shoveled, I went, I need a snowblower.
Yeah.
So it was those moments in life where you're just sitting there going, what was I thinking?
That's why you got 3 boys, right?
Yes, but
put them out there. I mean, it won't be for time, but you can, it's good learning, builds character.
There's something about, telling your kids to go shovel the driveway, and that they're going to be out there for 3 hours, get hypothermia, and have only done 2 square feet of the driveway, and you're going to have to go out there and do it yourself. And there's definitely a fine line to draw between getting them to do something and just accepting the fact that it's never going to get done and doing it yourself.
Other ways you can teach them about life lessons. Sometimes the driveway just needs to be done.
Yeah, true. We got to get out because otherwise we're not going to be on time,
right? Man, and then the snowplow goes by just as you're.
Oh, that one kills me. Like I
that's insult to injury. You get to the very end, all plowed. It's like.
And not only has he taken out your mailbox and 2 feet of lawn, but he's left this massive ice berm at the end of your driveway, which you then have to go through with a pickaxe. I mean, it's just...
Well, to get into my driveway right now, it's actually a ramp. Because like the rest of the driveways, it's like all the snow that's like an ice. So there's a good chunk where you go up and over and down. So I'm usually a big believer when it snows out that the sun will melt it eventually. So I've done that plenty of times where I'm like, I can drive through it. The sun will melt it.
Super optimistic. I love that. Yeah. That philosophy only works for like a week in April.
I know.
Just to say.
I'm like, it's got to get above 35. Between now and April at some point.
At some point.
It's just, I mean, the winters like that. Winter holidays used to be the greatest thing because you'd go to somewhere cool and you get to ski and drink schnapps and have a great time. And then it was getting out here and living and working in it and realizing
I don't know where your vacation was. Everybody's like, wait, go cold to ski.
And it was just like, it was like I'm shoveling the driveway for the 7th time in a month going, this sucks.
Yeah.
This is brutal.
Especially this winter. Nothing's melted, so my theory's completely gone. So it's gone from snow to ice to more snow, so we're just layering it on.
That's why it's a theory. You had to test it. It's turned out to be not true.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, kind of like you said before. Like we choose stuff not to, and you hope you make better decisions. That's one where I just keep making. At some point, there will be a warm winter, and then it'll be like, I told you this.
Yeah, everything's good in theory.
Yes, everything is good in theory. I think we'll put that on the wall.
Yeah, well, one of my old professors had communism was a great theory put on his wall behind him.
Right on.
It only cost us like 40 years, umpteen $1 billion and however many lives to prove that wrong. But
yeah, but it was in theory, I suppose.
That's it. Everything's good in theory. Running up whiteface is good in theory.
Yes, until you're halfway up.
And skiing down whiteface is good in theory. Until
you're halfway down.
Yeah.
We've had our own.
We've all had our what were we thinking moments,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's like I was doing this bike race where it was through the mountains, and again, it was one of those, I'm fit enough to do that. Why not? Let's try that. What a great theory. And then realizing that I'd been going downhill for an hour, and I still had one more mountain to climb before the end of the race, and thinking, what have I done?
Right. If I just pull over now, car will drive by.
It's only one more mountain.
Yeah, it's only one more mountain.
There's these moments in life where you've literally just realized what you have to do to cash this particular check.
Yeah.
I'm a big get to the halfway point kind of guy, because then I know at least I've done half the work, and it can't be worse than what I've already done.
Yeah, no, it's not true either.
So I know, knowing that it the compound effect, it's going to feel worse, but then I'm like, hey, got over the hump. We're going downhill. We're sliding down now, and
the hump. That probably describes my fitness at the moment. But I'm definitely on the downslope.
No, I'm right. I'm maintaining. Right now. I'm not in peak performance by any means, but I'm okay.
The first workout this year, I was probably 2 weeks had not did anything. Heart rate was not above like one whatever, not even at 80, 70. So we go into the row and the wall ball thing. I think I stopped a minute short because I was just trying to beat my buddy. I beat him by 1 rep, and I just signed off. I'm out. Threw it down like, it's an AMRAP. I mean, I know, but I beat him.
Right.
There's just one number I had to hit.
Right. My point is that I won.
I was like, I was on the rower. I was on the rower. I'm like, well, what's he at right now? He's at whatever. I'm like,
one done.
out. Just had to beat him in the rankings. So,
yeah.
But usually actually last week was the snatching and the burpees.
Yep.
It was very quick, very fast. So I got done. I'm like, oh, this is, I'm going to go hard. I could have ended the workout there. 3 minutes was my only thing I did all week, but it was 3 minutes, and I was like, I'm good. I'm good. We're gonna sign off. I don't need to do the rest of it.
Yeah. Nah.
I proved that I could still go out of control and try to recover, which didn't necessarily happen. Hit total muscle failure. So.
Hey, you know what? You got to find your limits sometimes, right? You push, and sometimes it doesn't work out. The wheels come off, and you're like,
but again, when you say, but when you're 20 in your mind, in my head, I'm like, I hit that number once. That was my life. That's my lifetime PR. I couldn't, right? I can still do this.
See, I guess
I'm learning how to scale properly now.
There's variations of it's only. Like the philosophy. It'll be fine. That falls in that category. Like someone's like, it'll be fine.
Yeah, what's the worst that can happen?
Number 3, what's the worst that could happen? Well, I could hit halfway down the mountain and finish on my head.
Yeah. To be honest, that should have went through my head. I should have looked at it and then went and took the next one over, which I know wasn't as bad. A little longer, a little less grade on that, but again, it was kind of one of those things. Was hold my beer. I'm just gonna bomb down this and see what happens. See what happens.
But you're sitting there going, Murphy's Law. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. And then at some point you realize Murphy was an optimist.
Yeah.
Yes. I used to read those all the time. They always had them in restaurants.
Yeah.
There were some good ones though on some Murphy's Laws.
But it's amazing how so much there's so much in that. There's so much cool philosophy in a simple phrase like "it's only." I love that because it starts to. It starts to shape the way you think about your experiences or something like that. And
it does.
It's only. It'll be fine. It's all good.
No worries.
Number 4. That's
no worries.
Yeah.
Hey, what's that? It'll be fine. No worries.
It's all right. I tested it already.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. That's sometimes worse when somebody tests it first, because then somebody did it.
And how crazy your friends are.
And you can't punk out. You can't. It's not like like you say, 2 people are in, and you're just like,
It's going to be a good story, right? So like, you can't not be the dude who isn't part of the story.
So you don't want
to be the footnote that, like, yeah, we did this great thing and Paul was over there.
and Paul drove us.
Right. So,
savage, absolutely savage.
So yeah, so it's fun. It's fun growing older, learning, having kids. Like, we cover, like, that's some big stuff right there. And then you boil it all down to 2 words.
It's only
it's only another kid. No, it doesn't work. That's the one point in the philosophy that it doesn't work, just for the record.
Yeah. No, so mine are 15 months apart, and we were 2 and 3. Like, 2 kids, it's great. They're Irish twins. They're always hanging out. And then Karen calls me up, and she actually sent me a text with a picture of a positive pregnancy test. That's how I found out I was having a 3rd kid. And I'm like, called her up, and I'm like, is that yours? And she's like, well, who else is it going to be? I'm like, oh, God. I'm sorry. Like, this is one of the. I don't know why she keeps doing it to me, but we just moved to England. I was doing a master's in the UK. We'd decided we wanted to travel. We weren't, we were holding off having kids, and she wakes me up at like 4:00 in the morning. I'm pregnant, and she'd been crabby and angry and everything else. We assumed it was jet lag because we literally just arrived in England. And in the terrible sleep stupor that I was in at the time, all I could think to say was, oh, God, that explains a lot. and it was probably not the greatest reaction of all time.
Said that?
Yeah. It was just, I'm not.
But here they are, still married. He's still alive.
It was only one comment.
Exactly. Well, but then, I mean, it seems like every time this comes up, we have the next story to go with it. So, 15 months later, we're back in Australia. Dante's, how old? He was 6 months old at this point, and we're on the phone. I'm at work, and she's talking me through. Oh, like, so don't forget, I need you to go to the grocery store tonight because I'm making this. We're heading to your parents this weekend. I'm pregnant. Don't forget to get the car serviced. I'm like, wait, what? Go back one. She's like, what, your parents? I'm like, no. I'm like,
after that.
And so the 3rd one was a text. So
there you go.
Yeah. So we never really had the traditional announcements, so to speak, of honey, I'm pregnant and we're about to have another. It was always like, what just happened?
Gina did that for the first one, and of course I come walking in, and she's like sitting there at like our island, our old house, and I like walk in. She's sitting there. I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm like oblivious at times especially when I come home. It's late. I'm just like throwing stuff down. I'm like, did you eat dinner yet? Like, okay, doing the whole thing. She's like, yeah. And she's like looking at me, and for a few minutes, I'm like wandering around the kitchen. She had set up like everything on like it'd be like me walking in and seeing like one thing on the counter, and it was like a pregnancy test or something, whatever she had put on the table, and I'm like totally oblivious. And then I think about the second one, which I was thinking about this the other day. I don't even know how she told me that she was pregnant. If she even did, I mean, it might have just been the same thing. Like she's probably going to end up like, she won't listen to this, but she won't. But she's like, who'd you talk to? I don't want to listen to you talk. But
Karen said the same thing to me. We did a little podcast last time. She's like, I'm not going to listen to that. You could probably hold my attention for 20 minutes, but whatever it was, 2.5 hours? No.
I know. I got some friends that listen to it pretty religiously, but then I got like Jordan. I'm like, Jordan, did you listen? Well, no. I was like, do you listen to any of them? No. I'm like, okay, well, that's good. She can mix them. She can edit them good. But I said that poor girl, she's got to at least listen to the beginning and end of each one to know where to put things in. So she's heard me enough that I think she's heard more podcasts than she would ever care to hear about.
Oh, mind-blowing. It's funny how so many of those threads of those stories seem almost familiar, even though they're completely different stories. It's like... I think we all tended to marry women smarter than us.
Oh, yeah, by far. And I always marvel at how oblivious sometimes. Just like I remember I was working at a place, and that Willow came in to chat or whatever, and one of the people that I was supervising at the time, she said, "Oh my goodness, you must laugh all the time. Paul's so funny." And Willow was like, "Yeah, funny." And that was how she responded. and it's like one of those things. It was early, like we were in our 20s at the time or whatever. But it's just funny, and like now I can chuckle at how annoying I can be, because I mean I'm terribly optimistic, like terribly so. Like I think that hell. I don't know what comes next. You get one shot at this. Let's freaking enjoy it. You know what I mean? So I tend to frame things pretty positively. And I know that can be annoying. Like sometimes when people just want to be pissed, right? You just want to be angry. You don't want somebody coming in and saying, well, look at the bright side or whatever the hell, you know? And so it's just funny when you see how a whole life, we've been together forever. I mean, more than half my life. I was 19 when we started dating, and I'm 42 now. So we've grown up, and you know things change, but it's just so cool to be able to look back on all those silly things and just realize how.
So you wasted all your good jokes early, right?
Oh yeah, no. Yeah. I'm out now. Now it's like, yeah, that's funny. Did you get the groceries?
It's like that never-ending meme. Is like marriage is simply one of you texting the other one, "Do we need anything from the store?" repeatedly until you die.
Right. Do we know where the kids are? Did we get the stuff from the store?
Can you pick this up? Sure.
Yeah, sure. Done.
What's happening tonight?
That is most of it. What are you cooking for dinner? I'm not going to be home. Okay, well, I'm like, it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
It's errands.
It's
co-managing the household.
It's enjoyable though. You know, like at the end of the day, it's fun to be able to look back. We've been married for what year is this? 19 years.
Wow.
See, we did it right because we got married in 2000, so the math is easy. I always know what year.
That's good.
Right.
Practical
advice, people.
I actually had to get it engraved on my ring inside, so I know. I really do. I swear to God. That's like one thing when I went in, like, what do you want? I said, can you put the date on the inside of the ring?
That's brilliant. It's like, you know, Lord of the Rings, the inscription on the inside. It's like one ring to rule them all.
This is the
steady. Be careful where you're going right now. Your wife may, in fact, listen to this.
Mine doesn't fit anymore.
The funny thing, Gina goes, when do you want to get married? Like a Friday in April. So I looked at the dates. 7, 14, 21. I said, we're going on the 14th. She goes, why? I said, because I can remember 4/14. It's not that hard to remember, so I'm good. So usually, I have it on there. It's the year. The year always gets me because I look for the year, but
that's so
I actually forget what year we were actually married. But I do know. It's my cheat sheet. But 4/14.
He's got a fact checker all the time.
Yeah.
He's like, Yep. It's
4/14. I know that. And then the problem is we get to April, and I wanted to get something, and I'm like, shipping is 10 business days. All right, well, we're just going to take you out to dinner. I don't know. Which is usually good. Food for Gina, usually you can check a lot of boxes on that one. So
Right on. It's fun. It's fun. You know, and that how that shapes who you are and your life philosophies and things, you know. I mean,
changes things.
It does. Well, I mean, you're essentially sharing your life, making decisions. Like, it's no longer like, oh, I'm just going to go do this. Like, you got to consider somebody else, and you got to, it's
that was me for the past 10 days, and the thing is, I'm such a creature of habit that I couldn't really break the habit. So I was still like up at the same time, going to bed, there wasn't much going on. Where I was like, I don't really have to check in with anybody, but I'm also not really doing much. It's like.
It's not like you go out and have wild parties or anything
else.
Well,
I tried, and I was like, well, I'll go out on St. Patrick's Day, and then I find out that I'm not cut out for that anymore. So I'm much more. I'm now in the give me a couple IPAs at Valcor.
Give me a couple of IPAs. I'll go crawl into bed.
We'll be home by 9 and bed by 10.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Watching what's on TV. Watch a good show. 20 minutes where everyone's quiet. Like, yes.
Well, that's even the weird thing. I don't watch a lot of TV, so the TV hasn't been turned on in 10 days. One is I have a hard time even figuring out how to turn the TV on. I'm at that stage too, where I used to as a kid. Now there's so many buttons that I usually just know that God. I usually just know that the TV's on. I swear to God, I'm terrible. I know the TV's on and I know how to put it on Netflix. So that's about the extent of my.
Watch us before your eyes, Galen Trombley will turn into an 86-year-old man.
Right, I'm literally like hitting this thing, and I was with someone the other day, and I'm looking at it, and there's arrows all over, and they're like, that one. I'm like, okay. I'm awful with technology. I really am.
This conversation has circled around like old men with bad hips, bad knees.
Old men, yeah.
Can't figure out how to turn the damn TV on, and kids today. I mean, we've covered all the things.
I know, and it's. The problem is that you guys got me by a decade, so it's going to get worse.
Maybe a little more.
Tad bit more.
How old are you?
29.
Oh God.
He's complaining about his hip, though.
Arch my foot. Why is he arching my foot?
And the fact
I haven't done anything today. I've been driving. What is my
his wrist when he puts the dishes away?
Yeah, he doesn't get.
I've been driving on cruise control.
29, dude. Seriously.
Does 30 bother you?
No. Actually, I'm pumped about my 30s.
Nice.
I think 30s is gonna be my decade.
It's a cliche, but age is a number.
Yeah. No,
I don't care about aging. I like myself. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I mean, physically, like, yes, would I wish I was 18 and could still, like, do a bunch of stuff and not hurt the next day? Sure. And then a couple things here and there, but at the end of the day, it's good. It's not bad.
Certainly better than not being 30. You know what I mean?
Like, what's the alternative? It's
right. It's like,
yeah, I mean, I want to live to I'm 130, so let's do this thing.
Yeah, my grandmother actually just turned 100.
That's nuts.
And she is a little old Italian grandma. She lives in Florida with my mom. Just an awesome woman. She lived with us when we moved up here. But, you know, that's it. Like, there's the goal. Like, she still does things and goes to the grocery store, and, you know, it's awesome to see. And so there's my goal, 100 or plus, whatever.
Well,
she's setting the bar.
I always wanted 100, but the way modern medicine's probably going to be by the time I get there, so they're going to be able just to, like, it's almost like going to the gas station. They might just, like, put a new battery in you or get you a little more gas and be like, this will get you another 10 years.
You'll be fine. Right.
No, it's not just getting to 100, though, isn't it? It's getting to 100 and still being able to
function,
enjoy
to do things,
and have a great time and do all of those things. I mean, you know, my grandmother was in her 90s when she passed away, and I think she still had a better social life than I did. So,
that's key, because I would like to be active as long as possible. So
and mentally,
and
my big thing's mental. I can get to 100 and still, like, mentally. I'm still doing podcasts at 100. Can't wait.
They'll sound very much like what you've just heard today.
Yeah. They're
damn kids, get off my lawn.
Really,
my hip, the kids today, and their rock music.
I've been feeling this for 80 years.
Right. This started when I was 29.
Yep. That was actually the first thing that ever happened to me that I did not know why it happened. I don't know why it was hurting. I literally had to take a lacrosse ball out of my desk and roll for like 5 minutes on it, and I don't know why it was hurting like that. So, I know it's...
No, it is one of those things that, you know, your body, you have to start taking care of it. And it's one of those philosophy things in life where you make choice. You know, it's the philosophy we talked about last time. Reasons are bullshit. You make choice. And you choose to focus on something, or you choose to drive your kids around instead of going to the gym, or you choose to focus on work at this point in your life. But it's one of those things that I've sort of started to come back to now, and it's like all of a sudden healthcare, or taking care of your health and taking care of you becomes that much more important, because you have to make the most of the hours that you've got, and you have to take into account that some things are going to hurt the next day. But it's interesting how, you know, as you say, those life choices and priorities become different, because you know that if you want to go skiing a couple of times in the winter, that actually takes a little bit of preparation now. You can't just go do it.
Right. Well, stretching, perhaps a good night's sleep the night before.
Exactly. You know, you can't just go out, drink 7 beers, 8 tequilas, and expect to get up at 8 o'clock in the morning and go skiing. It just doesn't work like that.
No, not tequila.
Actually, never tequila. Never tequila.
I can't. That's the one. Give me one shot of tequila in a night, I will have a hangover the next day, guaranteed. It's signed, sealed.
No. This was one of the funny things, because having come from Australia, again, that British European influence.
Is that its tequila?
No. It was very much Scotch, and we got the occasional bourbon, but even bourbon wasn't that big. You know, there was Australian rums, which are dark rums, but then getting over here and tequila was always that end of the night, you know, knock you to the ground kind of drink. And then I discovered really good tequila. So it was like finding, you know, going down to Mexico and finding these bottles of tequila that, you know, one drink. It was just nice. It was like drinking Scotch all of a sudden. And,
you sip at it.
It was it was sipping
like
out of
Scotch.
very good tequila or a very good Scotch or something like that.
I had that we were at a bachelor party down in Philly, and one of the guys there, like, it was like a beer distributor. So he ended up getting, he's like, tequila, and I'm like, no, not happening. He goes, no, I swear it's good. So we had like a little glass of tequila, and it was phenomenal, like just sipping on it. But the crap that you go probably get at any bar that they're just giving, like, people are getting shots and making mixed drinks out of, that's the stuff, hangover next day, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Can't do it. But that one didn't bother me at all. That was actually really good. It was like a smooth drink.
Well, that's true. I think that's true of any of those kinds of things. Like, you know, bourbon. I love bourbon. You know, I like my black coffee. I'm a purist when it comes to drinking, right? So I want one thing in a glass, bourbon or Scotch, or I don't mix it up with anything. I don't, like, occasionally an ice cube if it needs it. You know, whatever.
Whiskey Stone.
You know, yeah, Whiskey Stone if it doesn't need the water, but you just want a little cold. That's fine. You know, but the same thing. Like, there's a level at which, you know, you have a glass of bourbon, and like it's just not worth it. But when you get to that next step and you can just enjoy it and you sip it and I love that. Love it. Widow Jane. If you're in the market for a good drink, Widow Jane. They sell it.
What is it?
Widow Jane.
Is that a bourbon?
Yeah. They sell it locally here.
Yeah.
It's totally worth it. My favorite.
Maybe I'll have to try.
No, but
I've taken bourbon, but it's been like with a couple shots with some buddies at like a golf tournament or out at the bar or something. But I've never really enjoyed it.
This isn't shots. This is mellow. But I've been really. So I have love pirates from a storytelling standpoint, right? Not actual pirates, but like the mythology behind them, right? So always up for, like, I can remember going on vacation with the Brightwells, and I was in between. I had left one job and I was starting a job, so it was a 1 week in between each, and we were sitting on a beach. It was the only time in my adult life that I didn't have a job, right? And it was like legit, like I was in the middle. But so I was
contemplate being a pirate first.
No, I swear to God, it was like if there was a third, if the third was there, we would have been in trouble because I'm sitting on the beach, Brightwell's sitting next to me, and I'm sipping rum, and there was a boat out there, and I was like, we could probably commandeer that. But we didn't, for the record. But just for a second,
just in case the NSA are listening,
right? It's only 20 yards out. But yeah, so I've been into. So that was just an aside. But I do like rums lately. I've been learning a lot about rums, and there's another whole just lovely. Like, you get good rum, you sit down.
But it's the enjoyment out of it now. It's enjoyment for a different purpose. It's enjoyment for the drink itself rather than for the experience that goes with drinking, I suppose.
Yes, very much so. Very much
Yeah.
so. And actually, I think Willow got me a long time ago a whiskey and philosophy book, and it was you'd go through like different philosophies and different drinks that you could have with them, and
Immanuel Kant and Glenfiddich. There you go.
right. I think therefore I am. I think I may have had too much whiskey.
So a nice little pairing.
It's a nice little pairing. I've forgotten who I am. There's been it's levels, but now it's for enjoyment, and a bottle of whiskey lasts much longer than it used to.
Yes, and therefore you don't mind spending that little bit extra on it, especially now that you have the disposable income as opposed to the, 4 cents 50 that you had as a college kid.
Right. You never buy wine at a convenience store. I'd like to learn that early. It's like $2 for a whole bottle. Like,
oh God,
there's a reason.
That's $2 hangover you ever had.
There's a reason it was $2. Let's be clear.
Isn't it fascinating? Like, wherever you go in the world,
and that's marked up.
There will be. Wherever you go in the world, there will be some drink that everybody refers to as the drink that everybody drinks at end of high school, start of college period, and it's the drink you drink to get drunk when you can't afford anything else. Yeah. And I don't care where you go, there's that drink.
Yeah, there's
whether it's like wine coolers or or whatever it happens to be, like
Keystone, Bush,
yeah. Natural, natty ice.
I did not stoop to that level. There was a line that had to be crossed. There was a line.
Clearly, there's an element of my North Country cultural education that's missing here. Because
I think we were. I actually remember drinking a lot of Blue Light. Yeah, I still drink it to this day. Like, that's still my, because we would splurge. I think in that aspect, because I think we had just grown up on that stuff. Not the
So
then you get to college and they're like Coors Light and Keystone, and can't do it. Just couldn't do it. I'm like, guys, it's worth the extra $5. I'm telling you.
Right. I'm sure we can find it somewhere. Shake the cushions out. Let's do this.
Hey, what's in your pocket? Let's go. Right. Let's ground it up.
Right. Oh, no one needs ramen this week. Like, friggin', like, ante up here, people.
That's it.
or to the point, knowing that you're going to be eating ramen and ketchup for the next week because you went out and drank whatever it was, a case of
ramen and ketchup. That's a weird thing. Ramen, and I could spring for cheese. You'd melt that on top. But I've never done ramen.
I think it was just literally something to give a other than cardboard flavor to the ramen. So ketchup. There you go.
I don't do ketchup, for the record. If anyone cares out in the world.
Ever?
Really?
Yeah, on fries occasionally. Ketchup's not a thing.
How have they not taken away your American passport?
Yeah, I like ketchup.
Yeah.
well, I like ketchup on. Actually, like ketchup chips too, but I like ketchup on.
None of it.
Hamburger and. I do not put it on a hot dog. I cannot put it on a hot dog. It has to be mustard. But hamburgers and fries for sure.
No, I'm mustard on everything.
Even on fries?
Yep.
See, I'm not.
Mustard on fries.
Yeah, I'm a ketchup guy.
There you
I'll put
go.
mustard on any kind of hamburger or a hot dog sausage.
But never ramen. Never.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even. I mean,
Hey,
last time
dude,
had
I eat
ramen was-
Vegemite on toast for breakfast. Like,
Yeah, that's true.
I
That's
actually
true.
think I went through my whole college without having ramen. I broke the stereotype. High school, though, I had it.
No, I mean,
that's
Vegemite's
not-
such an Australian cliche, and you know, I completely understand people's reaction when I show it to them and show them what it is, and they're like, "Dude, you're literally putting cooked down axle grease on a piece of toast right now."
What is it?
Vegemite, it's just a.
Willow loves it.
I know that's the bit that
It's
I.
a thing? Oh, this is like a U.S. thing?
All right, you guys keep talking for a second. We're gonna do this.
Keep going. What is it? Veg what?
Vegemite. It's an
Can we fact check this, Craig?
it's an Australian thing that I don't really know much about it, to be honest with you, but people don't generally like it, is my understanding.
It's like spam?
It's the weirdest stuff, but Willow loves it. Like she loves it, and so is he like legit?
He's got a jar of veg.
Oh my God, this got real just quick.
Let me see this thing.
Live in the studio, Vegemite.
Yeast extract. This is...
So, for those of you who don't know, Vegemite is a very stereotypically Australian thing. It was developed in World War II as a way to get vitamin B12 into kids, and you spread it very lightly on toast, and you have it with toast.
Oh yeah.
But it's exceptionally salty. It's exceptionally strong. And it's one of those things that if you don't grow up eating it, then chances are you are going to look at me like I have two heads when I put this stuff on bread. And I mean, open it up and smell it, and you'll get...
Yeah, no, it's this is legit. I can't believe it. Like, spectacular.
Yeah, no. Oh, by the way, Vegemite, you never heard of it? Right in the office. It looks like...
It looks like grease,
no,
right?
Well, like a grease and Nutella. Oh, Jesus.
This is my point.
So next time we get together,
Does not-
Vegemite on toast.
Does it not smell?
So,
Doesn't smell the best.
Two of us say he's got to do it. Doesn't he have to do it?
It just happened. Just now. You just heard it happen live.
You got a spoon?
No, don't do it with a spoon.
No,
like,
wait.
no,
No,
s-
just a sec. Sit. Here's a stick.
This is going to get really bad, people. Galen probably isn't going to be talking to us for about the next 5 minutes while his
taste
taste
bad?
buds recover.
Is it really bad?
Yeah, no, normally you don't do it straight, dude. Like, normally...
Is it like wasabi?
Yeah, it's kind of like
Well,
wasabi.
but,
like,
but not. It's not hot.
it's not hot. It's just incredibly salty.
You're not going to feel it in your sinuses necessarily.
Don't do all of that, dude. Like, seriously.
Really? Is it that bad?
Yeah, like,
It's
just take a
intense.
little
For
bit
people
of
that
it.
don't
It's
know,
very
there's,
intense.
there's like
There's
a pea
a pea-sized bit of Vegemite.
So
No,
she's just like,
look, we're going to do this another time, and I'm going to do it properly on toast for you. Like, don't do that, because that'll just cruel you for
it's-
life, and
but
it'll
it's
be
only
horrible.
a pea size.
It's only a pea size.
No, I gotta try it. I gotta try it now.
Ladies and... All right.
I feel like the kid in a Christmas Story. He's like putting his tongue to the pole. Like,
This is one of the. This is one of those.
That is the gastronomic equivalent of putting your tongue on an icy pole, dude.
Yeah,
like, seriously?
This is one of those 3, 2, 1, go moments. You know what I mean?
so don't take that whole thing down.
Yeah,
It's not like wasabi.
just a
Dude,
just a smidge.
I've given you your advice.
How much do you
You're
put?
gonna-
Wait, how much do you put on toast? Obviously more, enough to cover the toast.
Like I said, we could do this properly, but just do you, son. Just off you go. Moments of silence as Galen tries this stuff.
Oh God.
And there you go, ladies and gentlemen.
So we have
think
dropped to 2. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm great, but I think we're going to have to take over for a little bit because poor Galen's going to lose his mind.
We lost him.
Now-
Water doesn't help.
Admittedly, I did warn him.
You did. There
I
was
did my best.
There was a. Yes, but how do you feel?
Dude, it's only Vegemite.
It got my throat.
Oh God! This is like one of those like jackass moments. You know what I mean? Like you give him a pea-sized thing of Vegemite, and you're like, "Don't do it." 20-minute recovery.
My throat. I don't even know if I've swallowed it yet. It's like stuck in my.
So anyway, you spread that on toast.
And normally you spread it very, very lightly on toast with butter.
That was the best. That was worth 7 a.m. right there.
That was worth everything. So poor Galen at the moment is literally losing his mind over in the corner of the room here. And I do apologize because I was laughing way too hard to talk.
And scene.
And scene.
Jesus Christ. Keep talking.
Yeah, we'll keep talking.
We're on it. We're on it. So don't listen to your friends. That's
Ever. And maybe that...
No, the 2 out of 3 person rule is not a good rule.
2 out of 3.
I think Paul and I are just about ready to high five over the table at the moment. Like I said, we want him.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a thing, and people love it.
Yeah, see, I'm not sure. You know, he did mention it before, and you can imagine putting Brightwell and Coda on this conversation right now and how much worse that would have been.
Yeah.
In fact, Coda would have been sitting here actively encouraging to take a big teaspoonful of it.
He might be the personification of Vegemite. Sorry, Coda.
We love you, mate. We really do.
An acquired taste. That's what I mean. An acquired taste.
No. It is interesting, though. So, all of the threads of what we talked about over the past multiple podcasts. I looked it up, by the way. You were episode 13.
Oh, nice. Lucky
it's
number
interesting,
13.
Making the choices to cut away the things that just aren't fun or don't make sense or all of those kinds of things. And you end up with that group of friends who take you to places you didn't necessarily want to go, or you marry an incredibly intelligent, smart woman who takes you to places that you never thought you'd go to in your life. But it's interesting putting, there's a level of crazy that...
Vegemite just broke the headset.
He's not even kidding at this point. Galen's sitting here staring at a broken headset.
So this headset is basically the equivalent of my foot the other day. I don't know how it broke. I just put it down and it snapped. This is what happens with Vegemite.
Holy crap!
That's all right. We'll order another one.
It's like one of those moments where I'm glad he broke his stuff and not me.
Because that always is the way it happens. But you end up sort of you end up cutting away all the extraneous stuff that doesn't matter. But you end up with this incredibly crazy group of friends, and it was like Coda's one of those guys who's up for just about anything. So always a good person to have around.
Yes, yeah. No, it's true. It starts again, even with people, it ends up being quality over quantity.
And there's your next philosophy in life. I was going to say the number of philosophical couplets we've dragged out of the last bit of conversation is quite phenomenal, really.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. Little sound bites.
You right there, Gal?
He's back.
Still in my throat.
Oh, Jesus.
And for the record, the memory lasts forever.
I can smell it. I'm not having that again. Not on toast. Not enough.
Not in a box, not with a fox. Little Dr. Seuss said, do you like Vegemite and toast?
You really put that on toast?
Every day.
Oh, my God.
It's an acquired taste, as he said.
Will likes that?
Yes.
My throat is on fire right now.
That's we literally warned you. I think I said the words.
Out of the pea size, I had
I
had a smash pea out of the pea size. It wasn't even a... Oh, God. Stuck in my throat.
Oh. I'm sorry. That was just too much.
That was fun.
So...
Go ahead.
Galen's hanging on by a very thin thread here, the poor guy.
We're good. No, keep going. It's the worst thing I've ever had on the podcast, so...
Well, I was going to say, it's not like... I'm not even sure how that... It was literally like, I will literally show you how did we go from...
Well, you opened it up and then you said it tastes good, so I'm like, I've always tried stuff.
Jesus.
Well, that's a philosophy that'll change, huh?
Yeah. No, anytime Craig says, well, I mean, I like it.
Yeah. No.
It's like, anyway.
Hey, you were on something there before.
Literally talking about, that we cut through quality versus quantity, and that's true of everything in life. It's true of, time with your kids, time with your spouse, time with your friends. You start picking up on those quality moments, and it's interesting you say that the scrapes that you tend to get into with the 2 out of 3 rule. But they do give those quality experiences in life, don't you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's true. I think, is it Homer Simpson that said, you don't make friends with salad? Like, that's
Was
true.
it no great story starts with salad? Or
Yeah,
something
like that, right? And his other one is to alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems.
Absolutely.
Homer Simpson's got some good ones. In those middle years, you can learn a lot from watching The Simpsons. I'm not so much maybe now, but
Is it still on TV?
yeah, like
Longest running sitcom.
30 years.
It
right?
started the year I was born.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Still
That's
doing it.
crazy because that means I really am that much older than you because I used to watch The Simpsons and like.
Well, I used to watch it. But I stopped. I stopped watching, and I got into.
I meant as a like a
live.
yeah like
Like-
you know not from birth
Every week,
right.
you know?
I watch the reruns. No, it's
Oh, that's savage. But how is it that you ended... Sorry, coming back to something you said before, how is it that you ended up, like, for the one time in your life with a week of being unemployed? Like, what happened there?
I had accepted a new position and left my other position, and so there was a week period before my start date. So I was like, "This is great." It ended up being our family vacation. We occasionally will travel with the Brightwells, and so we just happened to be on the beach. Not like my phone wasn't ringing, nothing, no email, nothing. I was like, "Oh my God, this is."
you really should have stole the pirate ship.
I'd be in Canada. Where would we be? Somewhere in the Caribbean, like, right?
That's amazing.
Wearing
isn't it?
beads in your hair with a big beard.
Yeah. No, I think it was lovely. It was lovely. I it's not that I don't like work, and I enjoy being involved with things and doing things, but there's so few times in life where you allow yourself to just kind of not think about things and really just like not worry about things, and you know what I mean. And I'm generally somebody who doesn't worry about things. Like I only worry about what's in front of me, right? I mean, you were talking about that earlier, and I think that is a solid philosophy of how to approach things. Like, you can't worry about what's coming 3 steps from now if you don't complete the step that's in front of you, because 3 steps from now doesn't happen if you don't complete the steps in front of you. It's true about a barbell or a degree that you're working on or a project at work. If you don't do the thing that's in front of you, everything else doesn't happen. So I tend to look at things that way. Like, why worry about things that haven't happened, that might not happen? There's so many things that could alter, you know what I mean? Like, so you just approach life and you're like, okay, here's what's next. This is what I have to do. This is what I want. I'm not saying don't plan long term. Obviously, you need to do that to some degree, but you plan it in such a way that, like, I don't worry about the disaster, because it's equally possible that something amazing is going to happen as something bad is going to happen. So why dwell on necessarily either?
I'm guessing that in particular is one of the philosophies that drives Willow completely nuts.
It does, yes,
Yeah.
it does, because she has a part of the mental training as far as her competition goes is being in the moment, right? So not that it's a brilliant
Embrace the suck.
yeah, or just not worry about
or change circumstance.
yeah, not worrying about who's watching you or what the outcome. Like, why are you worrying about the outcome? Like, you don't know what the outcome is going to be if you don't do what the work. The outcome is secondary. Like, that the process is the important part. If you do the process right, if you do the thing that you're trying to do in front of you right, then the outcome is what it is, right?
See, that is so incredibly compelling. That the idea behind that, I love that.
Yeah, and that's it. But that's my. If you sum me up in a nutshell, that's it. Like, don't worry. Again, as a parent, you worry about things. As a person, you worry about things. It's not like you don't have those emotions, but you acknowledge them. You sort of tip your hat to them. But you let them go. And when you do that, you're very much able. And it takes a long time to be able to do that. It's 20 years of practice of habit of doing that over and over again and approaching things like, okay, how do I look at this so that I can see my way through? It's very difficult. It's very rare now that I don't see a way through for myself. And so when I do, it's still very uncomfortable for me. Like, if I can't see a way through a problem, it's strange, because normally, you remove the emotion out of things if you can, and you sort of take the steps through. But that's it. That's training. That's life. That's kids. That's all the things. Like, if there's a problem, what can I control? What's the outcome that I want? And then it's the process that I use to get there. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun for sure. But it's difficult sometimes, I guess. I really like. There's. Do you ever read Dune?
Yes,
Right.
very much so.
So there's that, and I couldn't quote the whole thing for you, but essentially, the fear is the mind killer. There's that little. There's a little speech.
Bene Gesserit, yes.
Yeah, and I absolutely love that, and that's it. Like, you can't. You can be afraid, but you can't let that fear, freaking GT just wolf down some Vegemite, no fear, man. But you know what I mean? Like, you let that in, maybe next time you'll be a little hesitant, but it's all those things kind of wrapped up. I'm very present, I think, and that's what I've always tried to be in all aspects of my life. And it's interesting because that is the thing that is difficult, because sometimes people want to worry and be mad, and I'm not saying again that those things aren't real and shouldn't be. You shouldn't bottle those things up, but you shouldn't let them control how you move forward. So it's
no, I hear that fully. I think that would take 20 years to come to terms with a philosophy like that and be able to do that routinely in life. But because sometimes you do want to vent, sometimes you do want to lose your mind and come back to it 10 minutes later. But often I find that I can lose my mind completely, but the problem still exists when I come back to it 20 minutes later, and I haven't actually moved the problem any further by. Yeah,
and by no means am I suggesting that I don't, have to vent and do those things occasionally, but it's less and less frequently. But in the gym, I've never been able to meditate. I think I said this last time we talked. I've never been able to meditate, sit down and sit at home. Like, I don't do any of that stuff. I like, for being as generally calm as I am, I like loud music. I like barbells hitting the ground. That's how I find my inner peace or whatever, And so, but that's it. So when we hit the gym and Willow with her training, it's like, don't worry about other people's scores, right? Because you can't control what other people do. You can only control what you do. If you're looking at 21 reps, don't worry about rep 21. It's one rep 21 times, and hit that rep every time. Be present in that moment every single time. CrossFit is one of the most zen things you could ever do. Weightlifting, I guess, in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be CrossFit, but, setting up, picking up the barbell. If you let distraction go in any direction, you can hurt yourself. You miss your lift. You shave 5 seconds. You're 5 seconds longer. Same thing with running. Like, running is just very methodical and sort of, you just one foot in front of the other, and you just enjoy sort of doing that, and you let your mind wander, and you go through those things, and it's a very very being present allows for success in those things, and that's very hard to do. But anytime, like, you take that mentality to the gym or to work or to whatever, and I think it works 99% of the time.
I understand what you're saying. It's interesting though. I love doing CrossFit, but CrossFit to me was always a team sport. It was always I was around the people, and it was shared suffering and everything else like that. To get that zen point in a workout, it always had to be a long one for me that I could sort of settle into and find that point. Like, if you talk about some of the explosive workouts and those individual ones, like you talk about a Fran or something, those 2 to 6 minute ones, that was just a death march for me. I could never find a mental place to get into in that space of time, and it was just a case of try and blow through it and hope.
Yep.
Like, there was no zen to it. It was just slog, go. Whereas the more lengthy ones, the 45, the 60-minute ones, were the ones where I could actually find a place and just sit in it for a while. I have no concept of how anybody would find a zen place in a 6-minute workout. It's just something I can't get my head around.
Fair enough.
And as a result, I have an incredible amount of admiration for the people who can, find that moment in that lift or in that set of whatever it happens to be. Like, the people who can go into a garage like you do and work out on their own and still push it to the limit in those kinds of...
Yeah, that's practice too, though, for sure, because there are days when it's hard when you're by yourself. Certainly,
I find being I hate going to the gym by myself. Like, I find being alone in my head when I'm trying to do those kinds of things. It's different. I can get on a bike and ride for hours and be quite happy. Not so much running, but certainly on a bike or something like that. But going to the gym and trying to drive through a workout like that and push yourself to a limit where you've got that copper taste in your mouth and your lungs are hurting and everything else.
Right now.
Trying to do that is, I have nothing but admiration and respect for the people who have that capability, who have that mental ability just to challenge themselves in that moment and do that. I wish I had that skill.
I think we should take this show on the road, and we should get a group of people together and do like a pre 20-minute chat, and then have just a kick you in the face kind of workout, and then a post 20-minute chat, and just see what life brings at that conversation. Here's what
we can do that.
Here's what I'm expecting.
Like I said, we now do field trips with the podcast.
Right,
so.
right.
I'm getting the feeling this is about to be a 2-on-3 moment, isn't
Yeah,
it?
well, I think that'd be awesome to here's what we think, here's the intent, here's what we're expecting, and then just to get everybody's opinion, and sort of thoughts afterwards, because there are.
We'll get Brightwell's intended time.
Yeah. Have you heard of it's the Brightwell equation? We actually have it worked out.
Oh, God.
So we'll approach a workout, and I'll say it'll be 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever, and he's like, nah, you should be able to do that in 6. It's like, this is the 0.65. Brightwell's 0.65. Whatever he says, like, he's like, I think we can complete that in 10 minutes. Like, you multiply by 0.65, and that's the true amount of time it's going to take. We've mathematically proven. Because he's always like, oh man, that's, you should add 50 reps. I was like, I'm not going to add 50 reps, dude. But so the Brightwell factor, you always kick it up, because he believes, I think, and I'm speaking for him now because he's not here, and I can do that because he's not here, although he's probably ninja waiting outside in the parking lot right now. But anyway, he believes that you approach the first rep as though, and the last rep as though nothing happened in between, and there's no like expending of energy, or right. He just thinks that, oh, there's 50, and the first one's going to take me the same amount of time as the 50th one, so if I just think that's my time, then I'm good, not really taking into account necessarily that there's work and you're tired in the middle of that thing, right, or any of those things. So
there's a thing called rest.
Right, so he doesn't believe in that. So that's it. Like, he just approaches a workout like we always joke, you pull a Brightwell, you come out like blazing fast, and like you're just gassed, and like, the first quarter of the workout, you just got to be able to pull it back. But he's insane, man. It's impressive it's impressive what he can do when he puts his mind to something. And then I love it, like he's gassed on the ground, like just gasping for air, and he's like, that should have been 10 minutes. I was like, okay, dude.
But again, people who can take their minds to places that other people just can't.
That's it, the dark place.
Yeah, I've done a couple of workouts with Scott, like back in the day, where he'd be like, oh yeah, 10 minutes, you can do this in sets of 5. And I'm like, dude, by the end of this workout, I'm going to be doing sets of 1. Like, and then I'm going to be gasping for air, and then try and do another one. And something like, oh, no, sets of 5, totally. I'm like, no. Like, yeah.
Yeah, no.
It's just not going to happen.
It'll be fine. Sets of 5.
Yeah.
Sets of 5.
It's only sets of 5.
It's only sets of 5.
This is going to be a thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So
yeah, every time I watch Scott on workouts, he's usually in the full send mode. It's an all in. I mean, there's intensity. You want to hit intensity, but then there's intensity, which
Willow finds that place very well. Also, she's learned to, it's like her brain shuts off, and she just goes, and it's impressive to watch. There are days where like I'm just like I don't think
I've ever even come close to that.
Even when I do come close to that, I'm not even close to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You know what
I mean, my level of that, I'm not.
My brain shuts off, and I think I'm cruising along, and I'm still like 5 minutes behind. It's like, damn it! But
I can hang for the first minute.
Yes, and that's my problem. I try.
Rep for rep.
Rep
It's like going shot for shot.
Yeah, I can't do that either.
With like a dude that has me by 100 pounds. Like, it's not happening. I'm done.
no, it's interesting though, isn't it? I mean, like I always talk about rugby games, and you're taking hits and you're taking tackles, or you're out in that sort of long sort of cruise mode where you just you're working through it or whatever else. That Zen place at 45 minutes that a runner gets into, or a cyclist gets into, or something like that. But there's always a reason to get back up. When you've got no other reason than, you're alone in a garage, and you're doing, cleans, I don't know, at some ridiculous weight or something like that. Like, trying to find the mental place to get yourself through that next rep when it's just so easy to say, look, I'm done.
Right.
Like,
nobody's watching. Shh.
Nobody's watching. Like, nobody, who cares? Like, that's I don't know whether that's a habit or a philosophy or an ability or whatever the hell that happens.
Luckily, most of my regular workout buddies are all in the same boat as me, so there's a lot more of like 20 minutes. We're good. 12, 14, let's just call it quits. I've done that more often than we're just starting to do that now. We're like, we looked at it the other day, and there was one workout. I'm like, it's just taking us a little long, and it was milky. It was 5:30 a.m. and it was about 6 o'clock at this point. I looked over at him, and I'm like, I think I'm done after this round. And he's like, it was like a 5-round thing. It was 3 rounds. Like, Yeah, me too. I got a couple more reps. We literally went and sat over on the side and just shot the shit for about an hour. And that happens a lot, though. It's the perceived. I still walk in and I still get people that are like, "Oh, how you gonna do on this one?" I'm like, I just hope I can do it. Like I hope I can just show up and do it. I'm like, there's no expectation really. I'm just here to actually attempt. I'm at the attempt level now.
It was the first time one of these 18-year-old college kids like, how are you going to do? And I'm like, I hope I'm not going to die.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm here.
I'm here.
I'm here. Showing up is a victory.
Yeah. I'm just going to put RX on the board. I showed up.
Right.
I showed up, set up at the bar.
Right.
It was the right weight. I picked it up once. No, I missed it. Missed a rep, but I still attempted.
So no.
Still RX.
That's it.
You don't have to complete it. I mean, it's
just mind-blowing.
That's a myth, actually.
They got a cap for that reason.
Right.
The worst one ever was last year. Was a 40-minute cap with the double under one.
Yeah.
People that can't do double unders and attempt that RX, that's a mental fortitude judging thing right there.
Yep.
Because you just sit there and watch. And
It's like double unders is the only thing I'm good at.
Yeah. I'm terrible at them. Terrible. I never got the rhythm down.
I did, and then I was very good at them, and then I busted my wrist
doing the dishes, right?
Wasn't it was actually it's the same type of injury. We were doing remember the lumberjack 20? You ever heard that workout?
Yeah.
It ends with like hang dumbbell squat cleans or something like that. So of course, me and my buddy are going next to each other, so we're trying to beat each other out the door. We're kind of rep for rep. So I go do the clean, I stand up, and instead of just like putting the dumbbells down, because if I would have put them in front of me, I would have stepped over and like avoid them, and I want to beat them. So I go like this. I take it, turn my wrist, and dump it. Well, this one was fine. As soon as I turned this, I like tore something down the edge of my, and to this day, I can't, if you ever watch me, I can't twist my wrist. There's like permanent damage done. This was like 4 years ago, and I can't physically turn. I used to be able to do like 100 in a row, no problem.
I'm sure there's some joke to insert here.
Now if I what was the one they had? It was the one it was like 50. You had to do 50. I think I did that in six sets of 50, which is usually was no problem. Now it's like 11. Shake out for a few seconds. Like 19. Okay, shake out. It's a slow trudge to get there.
Trudge. That's a good word.
Trudge. I'm trudging through the mud right now on my fitness journey.
No, my challenge was always Annie, which was 50, 40, 30 with sit-ups and double unders.
Two of my worst movements. That would take me 10 minutes.
Well,
not exactly.
The challenge for me was always doing the double unders in Annie unbroken. And I've done it a couple of times in my life, and I wish to this day I could do the sit-ups unbroken, but I can't even come close.
Sit-ups I like. That's one of those things that I can just kind of do. Like those go well. Double unders not so much. But
are you talking like the butterfly sit-up or the anchor?
Either
anchor,
or.
I'm good. Like I'm actually more
butterfly is fine.
I'm more confident on a GHD because I can anchor my feet. As soon as I start doing with the butterfly, I did it once at your house, and you saw it. I think I kept about every 10 reps. I just laid on my back and was just like laying out like this, like cramping up. Like they're sit-ups. Surely I can do these sit-ups.
Surely.
It's only sit-ups.
Right.
It's
oh god. Right. You've started something now.
Yeah. Well, every time you come up against something, you're going to think that now. Just for it's like a little earworm. It gets in there, and you're like, wow.
I'm going to text Paul later on this week. I'm like, oh, it was only. I talked myself into something stupid. Right. I had a Vegemite moment.
A Vegemite moment. It's sort of a watershed moment. Yeah. The same kind of thing. It's a Vegemite moment. It's that time when you thought it was great and it tastes awful.
Yeah.
I can't argue with that.
I would have actually rather had wasabi.
Oh God, I like wasabi. I mean,
wasabi would have just cleaned the nostrils out. That just
that lingers.
That really sits in my throat right now. It's like because you retaste it, and then you can smell it. So it's like it's all the airwaves are all or the tracks all the same.
It's all there. You'll never think of Craig the same way again.
No, I don't trust Craig.
Actually, he's
like, oh, it's from Australia. You should try it.
To his credit, he was relatively honest. I mean, there was the nah, you shouldn't try that,
which is like the parenting thing. No, I don't want you to do that. I want you guys to yell and be crazy.
Look, and I was all willing to go with the experiment. I would have made the toast. I would have spread it on right, but you went literally into the jar.
We don't have time. We gotta we gotta bust through it.
Into the jar with a popsicle stick there, and it's one of those moments where all of the Australians would have been going, "Really? Are you sure?"
It was a pea size. I took about a quarter of the pea size. That was enough.
Only one Australian here.
Good, I think,
And he was saying that.
I'm glad you did say though. Don't take all of that because
That would have been savage. That would have ended ugly.
Reasonable.
it does look like looks like grease. It really does.
Yeah, it does.
Looks like you got it right off of the.
But no, it was fascinating moving. So I moved to the US in started 2013, and I had this period of 9 months where I was waiting for my green card. And so I got up. I used to be able to get up, take the kids to school, go have breakfast, go to CrossFit, do all those kinds of things, and just be able to sort of relax into life. But it also gave me the opportunity to explore a bunch of stuff that I might not have had other times for. And sort of getting out here and realizing that, when I first came to the States, to me, Mexican food was Taco Bell. I'd never had like quality Mexican food ever. And so all of a sudden you get this opportunity to have, these proper Mexican meals down in New York City with a chili burrito the size of your head or something like that. And you start to realize why everybody talks about, hey, let's go for Mexican food because it's so cool or so amazing or something like that. But there were so many of these American cultural experiences that I'd never had before, and all of these inside jokes that Americans inevitably have. And the one that sticks out to me is being on the beach in the summer and a guy asked me if I wanted a s'more, and not knowing what it was, I said, "More what?" Everybody laughed.
Killing me s'mores.
He's said that, and he's gone, "You're killing me s'mores," and everybody's laughing their asses off, and I'm looking at him like, "What just happened?" It's like,
Right.
And somebody handed me a copy of The Sandlot and said, "Just go watch this."
Right.
Like, okay.
One of my all-time favorites.
Nice.
But I mean, you think about, they're Western capitalist cultures and fairly close. I mean, we have McDonald's, we have those kinds of things, but it's the little nuanced differences that you've never had Cajun food before. Somebody says barbecue and it takes on a whole different meaning no matter where you are in the country or something like that.
Wait, Australian barbecue is Cajun?
No. Sorry. When you come to the US and somebody says barbecue, then you get North Carolina barbecue or you get Kansas City barbecue.
Or Memphis, yeah.
And it's amazing to sort of read into this stuff and start. I mean, I grew up with sort of seafood and a few other things like that, which is a little bit difficult to get out here. But again, you truck out to Maine and go for a holiday there, and it's just lobster fest as far as the eye can see, which is just freaking wonderful. But there are, it was always the odd things that people just kind of expect. I mean, somebody handed me a PB&J sandwich, and that was so cloyingly sweet. I didn't take more than 2 mouthfuls before I put it down and said thanks, but no thanks. So I'm sort of always aware of the difference. Somebody will see me eating Vegemite, and I'm like, all right, try it once, but you're not going to like it. I'm almost guaranteeing at this point you're not going to like it. Willow's
That's better than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to you?
Yeah. See, Americans do sweet for breakfast, which is something I see people with like pancakes and syrup.
Yeah, well, I don't. I don't do peanut butter and jelly for. Usually, it's like a quick travel food. Like if I'm flying, we'll make it for the plane, or we'll make it. It's.
But just
I
in
don't have it
general,
often.
a lot of Americans seem to do this sweet for breakfast thing.
Yeah.
And that was something.
French toast.
I was used to savory. I was used to breakfast was always almost a salty, savory meal. It was like Vegemite on toast, or it was. You might get toast, but you get sort of eggs or something like that. It was a very savory meal. Like sweet was dessert. So coming over and sort of finding, it was just those weird nuanced differences that, so everybody looks at me and says, "What do you mean you don't like PB&J?" And I'm like, I can't do it. It's just, it's really weird. Whereas everybody,
You do maple syrup?
I do maple syrup, but generally to me, maple syrup is kind of
Real maple syrup.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but even then, it'll be like a treat type like thing in it, and it's certainly not like one of those. People eat hotcakes or something or pancakes for breakfast, and somehow to me that it's just a jarring look at life. Yeah, sweet for breakfast. I don't know.
I eat it in about pretty much right now, kind of like the pancake. We're in the pancake season, like maple syrup season. Yeah. So I'll go. Probably over the next month, like 1 or 2 weekends, probably have it at like a place that makes it. But I'm not a big. I love it. I mean, they're good, but it's the same thing. It's like a dessert. So like you kind of look at it as a treat more so than a regular occurrence in the in the diet.
To me, sort of pancakes and whipped cream and maple syrup and everything else like that. That to me says dessert. It doesn't say to me breakfast. Whereas I know a lot of people who it is breakfast to them. And
yeah. No, I agree.
I mean, even when Karen cooks pancakes, and don't get me wrong, my family adored the fact that Karen would cook pancakes for breakfast. And there's a whole other story that goes with that, most of which involves my brother coming. My brother's 10 years younger than me, coming to our house from college and literally eating us out of house and home, and not realizing he was doing it. But the pancakes for breakfast thing. But even then, it was like maybe jam or something on it, or a little bit. But to me, sweet for breakfast was always a very American thing. I don't know what that is, but just an odd one.
Probably, yeah. Danishes, and so when you go to the convenience store and they get like a cheese Danish or a cinnamon roll, I'm like, how do people eat that for breakfast? I'm just black coffee, good IF until noon. I'm just kidding. I don't follow any of that stuff. My IF is purely done by having no time to eat breakfast.
Right.
Then it becomes black coffee till 2 p.m. and then I'm running to get something to eat.
But on the other hand, like bagels aren't like a thing all over the world. Bagels are a very quintessentially American thing. And I'm all about the bagel. Like
bagel's good.
Breakfast bagel, yeah, love it.
Yeah, if it's got like meat and stuff on it, I like it. I like bagels, but it's usually got to have something on the side. Very rarely do I just get a bagel.
Oh yeah, but the concept of like a sausage and egg bagel in the morning.
Oh yeah, like I'm saying, like if you go to like Bagel Pit and get something on a bagel, like an actual sandwich, love it. But
breakfast of champions.
Truth.
Yeah,
it's a good round. Yeah, I mean you got everything you need. Absolutely,
but I mean it's something just about that thick sourdough type bread that I don't know where it comes from. I don't know what culture started this thing.
Long Island.
There you go, Long Island.
Was it? That's where you're from, right? Yeah, but Long Island's like
Long Island
capital
bagels.
of bagels.
Delicious.
Yeah, love bagel. Like just one of those things that wherever I go in the world, I'm taking that shit with me.
Yeah, when my family comes, they bring up dozens and we freeze them.
We have the same. We have a friend that brings them up. Same. Yeah, Long Island. They're just different. They're better.
They are.
You can't replicate it. They say it's the water, which is actually I think the truth.
It's something.
Something down in the.
There's a little magic down there that happens that brings the bagels to a.
Is it a company that makes it, or is it just
anywhere
you go?
When someone actually says it's the water, I think it's the water they boil down there. Someone said I don't know if it's this like seawater. I don't know what it is, but
look, I'm going to show my complete ignorance. When you say Long Island, you're not talking Brooklyn, Queens. You're talking about like
the whole. Well, yes,
NASA and Suffolk County.
Yes, out on the island,
right?
Not the island, not the physical. Complete island.
Okay.
Right.
No, that's what I'm trying to get at.
Yep.
It's a bit like when somebody says, somebody from New York City says upstate, and they're talking about anything above Yonkers.
Westchester, right on.
Right.
Yeah.
So
close.
So
close.
Just got to make sure you understand, that Long Island is in fact not the geographical thing. It's actually
it's actually.
Have you had to, when you talk to people where you're from, and like not around here, but say I'm from New York, and then preface it with way upstate New York?
Yeah, well, I remember moving up here as a teenager and trying to find Plattsburgh on the map was like, nope. You just kept going until it was like, wait, are we moving to Canada? So, yeah, no, anytime you say that. But
like when you're traveling, like I'm from New York, and like, oh, the city, that's cool. I'm like, I haven't been in the city in like 4 years. But
right, yes. Same state.
Yeah. One of the triangle parts of the
No, I always like the, somebody will say, where are you from? And I say Plattsburgh, and they're like, no, really, where are you from? And I like, the South. And it just that look of abject confusion on their face. I'm like, the really far south.
Right.
There is in fact things south of Key West. Just
Yeah, whole countries. It's weird.
Yeah. Sorry.
And there's places north of Montreal. I've never gone north of Montreal in my life.
No.
I would like to, but I literally have never got past the island.
We've been out. We did New Brunswick and Prince Edward Island,
that's
so
cool.
We went out through Maine that way, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Quebec City.
Really
nice.
been to Quebec.
I've never been there.
Worth trip.
I want to go there, and I've never been to Ottawa, oddly enough, even though it's a couple hours away, which I'd like to go to.
Is Ottawa the one with the frozen canal that everybody can skate on for miles?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I always wanted to do that.
I believe so. It's the capital, but I believe it's the one with all... Yeah, fact check it. No, I think Ottawa's got... I think the river or whatever, canal, this like a big, long skating rink.
Because Ottawa's the capital, right?
Yep. I don't check on that. I'm not sure, but I haven't been, but I'd like to go. That'd be fun.
Yeah, there you go. Skating canal, Ottawa. Conditions.
Boom. The internet.
Boom.
Love it.
See,
and this is coming from people who actually went through high school without the internet, unlike some people.
Well, yeah, I had the internet, but
but it was wicked slow.
But when people like talk about like didn't have like phones, didn't have anything like that. So I was like the last, like I think it was the last like little bit of years where people at that point started to all have like smartphones and things like that. I think I had a flip phone my junior senior year that I could call
It was back in the day when it was like an LCD screen with 2 colors and you played Snake.
I think, yeah. That was actually my first game. Yeah, I used to play. Yeah. But that was it. And then, so like we didn't have Facebook I didn't have Facebook until college. I couldn't. They had like the EDU thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, because, I mean, you sort of look at the way technology's changed. And it's always a bit of a laugh when I'm talking to my kids. Like rotary phones with corded rotary phones in your kitchen. And the cord that would stretch right across the kitchen, so Mum could
100 miles, right?
It was always a challenge
to get tangled up, and you're trying
unwind
to
the tangle and things like that. But the internet wasn't really a thing until I hit college. Even at school, we had computer labs rather than personal computers. I always compare myself with my brother, who came 10 years after, and he went to a school where everybody had individual laptops. I didn't get my first phone until I was in college, and then it was like, the original indestructible Nokia.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Look, I can't even remember. I mean, I remember video calls starting, and I remember MMS starting, but I also remember it being horrendously expensive.
Yes.
Especially in Australia, where, let's face it, people get absolutely, the telecom companies may as well be pirates, because that's exactly what they do. They simply fleece you of all your coin and leave it at that.
Is Australia an expensive place to live?
The cost of living is much higher than it was here. From groceries perspective, there's also a lot of tariffs to protect Australian industry. So, for example, there was the Australian car industry for a long time was very protected, such that the cost of a car was extraordinarily expensive compared to the US.
What cars do they have?
All of the same ones. So you have Holden, which is the Australian company, but partners with GMC. Ford exists in Australia, but then you've got a lot of the Asian, Toyota, Kia, Hyundai, those kinds of companies. You don't have like Buick or Dodge or a couple of others, because by the time you've paid all the tariffs, it's, you get your average Buick and all of a sudden it's $60,000 worth of car. So very expensive. And then when you talk about the exchange rate, which can fluctuate quite badly as well.
How's that? Is it more like the British pound, or is it more?
No. It was quite. I can't remember when they deregulated the dollar. I think it was like somewhere in the late '80s, because I remember it happening when I was at school. But it's fluctuated anywhere from, in the really good years where it's dollar for dollar. So and they're the really good years, and I can start bringing money across here to the ones where it's like 50 cents on the dollar. But generally, it sits at around 70, 72.
So it's about Canada then.
Yeah. So it's again about Canada, and the same way people shop down here, you see the same approach in terms of what Australians have to deal with. So, clothes tend to be a bit more expensive, and food tends to be a bit more expensive, and real estate in Australia is just ridiculous at the moment in terms of how expensive it is.
Well, I was thinking like Hawaii is so expensive, but the same thing, it's an island, so you just figure shipping everything.
Yeah,
there's a little more.
And then it was all the weird things, like, you talk about telecommunications. Telecommunications was always government controlled, and they only just recently opened up the market. But one company owned all the infrastructure, so they could just fleece you for just about everything you owned. It was really quite obscene. Cable internet was slow and really expensive for like the longest time, to the point where the government just about had to take back over again to allow it to happen. And the other thing you've always got to remember with Australia is whenever you go to a different country, it's overseas, and it's a minimum of like a 3 hour. I think New Zealand alone is like a 3 hour flight from the East Coast.
So the continent of Australia, is it just Australia?
Yep.
So like, what's New Zealand?
New Zealand's an island across
Asia?
the ditches, they call it. No, it's Oceania. So it's not really. We're a lot closer to Asia than we used to be in terms of economic development and everything else. So Australia becomes part of the Pacific Nations group, but Oceania is like New Guinea, Australia, New Zealand, and a bunch of those islands.
What are they considered part of a continent or no?
Australia is considered an island and a continent at the same time.
But like none of those affiliate with the continent of Australia?
No, they're
because like I'm thinking like North America, or like Central America.
No,
maybe that's not how they do it. Like not
every. Australia doesn't have any land borders.
So like not every country needs to be a part of a continent.
No, that's right. So New Zealand is an island, but it's a country in and of itself, and it's not part of.
So like Central America is not a continent, but it's all like the little Caribbean islands.
Oh, the islands. I think Central America is still considered part of the Americas continent.
Yeah, because right? You have the Panama and you have.
I don't know, but it's all based on like the tectonic plates or something, isn't it? So
you're well outside of my.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably talking out my hat at the moment. So
we talked about daylight savings time in the last podcast, and there was the only two states not to have it is Arizona and Hawaii. But I thought there wasn't many that shared time zones. Like I thought most of the time zones kind of followed the border lines, and there's like 10 states that have
that are split.
Multiple. I thought it was just Tennessee, to be honest, because most of them maybe like I was even thinking Texas, even though being wide, was still all central, but it's not.
Yeah.
Even Florida has central time zone, which I didn't know.
So Australia has 3 time zones, and it was always really weird because if you imagine the East Coast is call it 0, and the West Coast is 3 hours behind, a bit like, but then there's South Australia, which is half an hour behind, and I never understood that. Like, why not just pick the whole hour? It's half an hour.
36 minutes. We want 36, and that's what we're going
with. What is 0 on the time? Isn't it like Japan?
0. No, it's Greenwich plus.
Oh, it is
10 or 11 or something like that, depending on daylight saving. Yeah. So if the east coast of the US is
it's
Greenwich
like the meridian
-5,
line, line meridian.
So I think the east coast of the US is -5, whereas the east coast of Australia is plus. Oh God, I can't remember. Plus 11, I think, or plus 10 or something.
So there's
like
a 16-hour difference.
Yeah, 16 hours.
When you would fly there, you'd go west though, right?
It depends. No, the standard route to get from New York to Sydney is New York, LA, Sydney. But as a result, it's really expensive to travel that route. So if you're willing to take a little bit of extra time and go some weird and wonderful places, it can get really, really cheap. So I remember when I was visiting Karen a lot, I was by myself. I didn't care. I'd find the cheapest route to take me across, and knowing that I have days to recover and could recover a lot quicker back in those days. So whereas a ticket between New York and Sydney might be $2,000 return. I remember one time getting it for like $800 by going sort of Sydney, Darwin, Tokyo, Chicago, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, or something like that. And ridiculously stupid stuff to do. But when it's you by yourself, you don't care. When all of a sudden you've got kids and everything else in tow, then speed becomes the essence of like long distance travel. And this is the travel hack that we talked about before, like trying to explain to a 2-year-old that, yes, I realize it's 4:00 in the morning. I realize we're on the floor at LAX, and I realize we've still got 2 hours to wait to get onto our flight, but you can't go to sleep right now because Daddy can't carry you in 7 suitcases, so you're going to have to walk. But I want to ride. So it's one of those moments, again, it's one of those Zen moments in life where you just have to find a place and just get through it.
That's it.
Because it's
time's ticking. So you'll get there.
It's only one trip.
Yeah, it's only.
The 2 hours will be done.
Gentlemen, I must say, speaking of children, I got to get my kid to where she's got to be. And
no, you're good because I got to go pick up mine somewhere.
Why don't we call it time?
I don't know what time it is, but I know we're good. We're within time. I won't be late to the airport.
Sorry, forgive me. I got on an elocution safari for the moment, and I don't know where that took us.
No worries at all.
That's usually how the podcasts go. We don't have any theme. We just talk about whatever comes to mind. So that's good. Okay, we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, sorry guys.
No,
but
absolutely.
I do think we should all get together and throw down. We're all at various places in our lives, and I think that would be a hell of a good time. So either your place or mine, but we got the equipment. Let's do this.
Yeah,
got some really fun ones I want to try.
Are you in?
I'm in.
Oh wait, so
boom!
Great. All right. So that will be a future.
We'll invite a few more friends and see what happens.
We'll do a little round table mic session.
All I'm going to say though is if we do this, you have to write something cool on my headstone. That's all I'm going to say. Here lies Craig DeBoos. Mistakes were made.
He makes it think like I work out a lot.
Right.
I'm probably right.
Well, right. It was only 20 minutes.
There you go. Thank you very much. On that note, gentlemen.
Josh. Paul.
Thank you, gentlemen. This was a lot of fun.
All right. Sounds good. That is episode, I think it's 19. If not, whatever. It's all good. All right. We're out. Thanks for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. If you want to reach me, you can go on Facebook at Galen Trombley, on Instagram at Galen Trombley, and on YouTube at Galen Trombley. The spelling, GaelanTrombley.